Call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Knopf.
Here.
Mr. Donahue.
Here.
Mr. Greenfield.
Here.
Mr. Hammond.
Here.
Mr. O'Day.
Here.
Mr. Schmidt.
Here.
Ms. Rivera.
Here.
Okay. Notice of this meeting was provided to the Burnsville News, the Courier News, and the Star Ledger, filed with the municipal clerk, and posted on the municipal bulletin board on December 11th, 2018. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So, oh, there you go. Okay, first on the agenda, we have the interim report of the Mayor's Ad Hoc Field Study Committee, and I think, Greg, you are going to do that. So just talking to the, it's not a microphone, it's a recorder. So,
Good evening, my name is Greg Rombre, and tonight I'm speaking on behalf of the Mayor's Ad Hoc Field Study Committee. And I understand everybody's received this report, just to run over a few things. We met a few times, and going through the process of cataloging the borough's properties to understand how vast they are and what opportunities could be out there for improvements. Then looking at it, we talked about maybe some opportunities to raise capital for improvements. We did discuss a few different options, and in the end, we felt like maybe the opportunity to switch the percentage of open space funds might be a viable opportunity for the borough. And so it's our recommendation that we put something on the ballot, I guess it would be next year.
November.
In November, and a referendum for the public. So instead of having 20% allocated only to field improvements and such, that 20% be allocated to the current, sorry, I'm not going to be very eloquent here, open space acquisitions, and the rest be delegated however the council would see fit to spend it for improvements or open space or safety. And with that, that would be our initial recommendation of the committee. I guess if anybody has any questions, I'll do my best to answer.
And you'll keep working on...
We're going to continue to keep going through the properties and trying to be a little more specific in what improvements can be made, what the costs are that are associated with those improvements, so that we can then go, before the rec committee, discuss it with them, but try and give them some more tangible information, concrete information.
Questions, anybody? Okay.
Well, how did, because in your report, you also had your suggested list, or at least a preliminary list of what these various improvements could be and how these spaces could be used, both spaces that already exist and then potential spaces such as Peter's Track that have not yet been developed. How did you come up with that list? What input did you get from people outside of your own committee?
You know what, a lot of it came from committee members. I don't know, everybody kind of chimed in on what they knew as the properties in the borough. For some of us, it's athletic fields. For some of us, it's like hiking and trekking or going through parks, playgrounds, the pool, whatever it is. So, my recollection, it was kind of an aggregate collection of ideas of what the properties were. Is that reasonable?
Yeah, and we also got the list from, Doug reviewed the list as well as the open space inventory that's on the website in the...
Well, that's the list of the facilities, not necessarily the list of what improvements might need to be done or how they might be used.
Those are the current
I apologize, I
properties.
misunderstood.
Yeah.
No, you're right. So we did look at the list, and then, for instance, I think for some people that were on there, I know baseball and softball fields, we use the pool, basketball court, so if I can lend some ideas about potential improvements from things I know, and I think that was kind of a contribution from many other members as well, things they knew or knew that the public might desire.
I guess, because when we were first talking about going back to Peter's Track, and then even before that, the Dryden Field property, one of the things that was kind of made clear was that we as a council can't decide for the people how what they may want to use for these facilities. And I wouldn't want to see your committee, however well-intentioned they are, doing the same thing. We should solicit the ideas of what people want.
I don't think in any way we're trying to decide what the properties or improvements should be. We're simply looked at things, said potential improvements could be, and then our recommendation is a way to access revenue or capital for such improvements at such a time as you would see fit in the future.
Yeah, right now, all they're reporting on is the funding issue, because that has a time element to it. The rest of it is all a work in progress.
Yeah, it's first things first. If we get the tools to do it, we can have that conversation later, but, you know, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves and talk about what to do. But the recommendation for fundraising makes sense to me. I mean, it's.
Well, I think it does. It's just, maybe I'm just focusing and fixating on one particular line that was in the first page of the document. You listed 3 priorities, and you said the first was, which is the funding. To me, it's kind of the other way around. We ought to decide what we want, and then we figure out what it costs and how to get it. They all go hand in hand, clearly. But
Well, the amount of
I'm just trying
funding-
to get my hands around this committee. And is it a standing committee? Is it forever? What's the relationship to the recreation committee? These things are really unknown to us.
It's a mayor's ad hoc committee, which means I created it, so it's really, you know, doing what I've asked them to do. So it's actually like a supplement to recreation and open space. It's kind of doing some of the extra work that feeds back into those committees.
You know, if the idea makes sense, the idea makes sense. I mean, council makes a decision on spending, full stop anyway, so this just gives us the flexibility, or future councils the flexibility, if it was to be voted in by the people, so we're not deciding, we're just getting the referendum ballot. If people shoot it down, well, they've spoken.
That was
If
the
not,
idea.
nothing's
I don't know
changed.
if people want it, but we have to, it has to be approved by you. So
Sure.
it's just-
Yeah,
the
and
idea.
I think if
We're
you start,
addressing it
if you
this
start to look at the list of, and I think that was the point, is
volume is just
you're looking at the
substantial.
volume of work we're talking about. It's obvious that that's not something that's going to fit into our regular maintenance budget, so or, a bake sale, or
Right, I mean, yes.
it's beyond that. So I think that almost has to come first before
Well, I
we,
think until you know how much money you have to play with, you're not going to be able to figure out which one of these things can fit into that agenda either.
I'm not, listen, the undertone of this is what to do with the open space funds. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I'm not opposed to changing the mix, per se, based on a referendum. But I also think that we also ought to have ideas of priorities. And if this committee is not only recommending how to fund it, but then in the future recommending what to do with it, that's what I'm concerned about.
Well, because I think your earlier question about what's the role of the Open Space Committee now. We have an Open Space Committee. I think it's been many, many years that we've had an Open Space Committee. What is their role now? What is their role in formulating these ideas or involved in these discussions? What is their role going forward if this passes?
It's the same role as any other advisory committee.
Right.
It's every advisory committee is identical in its form and in its role.
Right,
So it should be
the
no.
role
well,
overlaps a bit with this ad hoc committee was my point. I think the same thing holds true for the Recreation Committee, is we've got overlap between these committees now, and as such, it helps to define how they're going to work together, I guess. That's what I'm asking.
Okay, well, that's different. If how they're going to work together, I get it. But
Yeah.
but that's not what tonight's about. Tonight is simply accepting their funding recommendations.
Okay, so then
First step.
specifically about the funding recommendation.
Can I say an ad hoc committee doesn't last forever?
Right.
Yeah.
It's formed to reach one conclusion and then it's dissolved.
And I think-
The advisory committees are created by ordinance.
I don't
Right.
think there's any harm with going to see what kind of funding you can get. I mean, I understand what Jeff is saying,
Yeah.
but let's not put the cart before the horse. Let's see what we can get, and then we can work backwards and say, hey, what are we going to use it for? I don't think we need to have a need and then go out and see, oh, we need X. You can do it both ways, but neither way is wrong.
Right. So the other alternative I think we could discuss is the concept of having a list of projects, which I think was at the beginning of the ad hoc committee, was one of the ideas that there was going to be a list of projects. Am I remembering correctly?
Eventually, yes.
Yeah, but what I was going to say was, and this goes back to the question of funding, is if we had a list of projects, we had an idea of what the funding was, would an alternative way of doing this, saying, take a one-time distribution from the acquisition side, pay for all the projects, that way we don't have to necessarily try and get people to get in line. The process that we're doing now, it could take 5 or 6 or more years to get to item 7 or 9 or 12 on this list, depending on the price of items 1 through 8, So if we had a certain number of projects, and I'm thinking of how do we increase the probability that the voters will approve what we're asking them to do. So if they knew how their money was going to be spent, would the probability of getting the referendum passed be greater? Because they could say, okay, well, I'm going to make this one-time adjustment, we'll get these projects funded, we'll get them all, moving forward, and, we still have the 80-20 split as it is today, or maybe there's some modification to that, but it's not this, flip of what we're doing, and then it kind of goes on in perpetuity, and people don't know, necessarily what's going to get funded. That's to be determined in the future. It's just an alternative way of funding it.
I agree with
and
everything.
Is one more
Everything you
appealing
said.
to the
I agree with everything you
voters
just said.
than the other.
I agree with everything you just said, but I think that, your name again?
I'm Greg.
Greg. I think that's what Greg is in the early stages of putting together.
There is more, yes, I think what that would
Absolutely.
be the supplemental aspect to the other committees, where
Yes.
maybe we can put some numbers to paper, present it, obviously you would see it as well, but
So I think what I'm saying is there more work that we want to do, and then maybe take stock and say, do we leave the referendum as it's originally proposed here, which is perfectly fine if we all think that's the right way to go, or do we think that maybe this alternative way of funding all the projects might be more appealing to voters and more likely to get passed?
Well, I think going the alternative, I think, if I understand the principal balance, so to speak, I think that wasn't well received a couple of times it was tried, so it sounds like this strikes the balance of like committing to open space acquisition funds, also leaving flexibility. I mean, with that money coming in, nothing necessarily has to happen to it unless we decide. We can offer acquisition, part of it can be used for maintenance, so I think it does strike a good balance. And
Well, I'd like to clarify, though, that I think it's a misnomer to say that the other way was tried once. What was tried was one specific project was put on a referendum. What we're talking about is doing a broad-based, open space funding for multiple projects that have a broad appeal across the voter base. It's not a specific project for a specific group, which is what failed in the past. So I think the part of what was discussed, at least my understanding of the ad hoc committee, was that we're going to have a list of projects broadly based across the entire town that would have, more greater support than any single project has.
Yes, you're correct. Just for the people who are here who don't know what we're talking about, we have an open space tax. It's 2 cents on $100 of your taxes. It's a tax you're already paying. What we're talking about here is just changing the way we use that tax. Right now, that 2% goes into a fund that is mostly, 80% of it is for acquisition. So we put it in a trust fund so that if we want to buy a property, it's set aside for that. It comes to 480 something a year, about.
456 is the amount in the
456.
paperwork here.
So that's
It
what
changes each year with the assessed values of the properties.
That's what we collect each year. I said about that. And then 20% of that is set aside to do projects, which is around $90,000. So if there's something, I think this year we're doing the picnic grove at the pool with some of that. We're fixing the dam back here. I forget what the third one is.
Kiwanis Park.
Right, yeah, the trees on Kiwanis Park. So it goes quickly, that $90,000. So I think what we're looking at is changing that percentage. This is what the committee came up with, so that 20% would always be set aside to add to that trust fund. That trust fund doesn't get touched. Right now, there's about $7 million in there that is only to purchase property or pay down debt, I guess you could use it for.
But you could always take that money, the extra, and it could go back to open space. You don't have to use
Well,
it
that's
for
what I'm,
improvements anyway.
yeah,
It's
let
just
me,
giving you
let me
flexibility.
finish. So that, what's left, what we're saying is 20% would be always still for acquisition. The 80% could be either acquisition or development, depending on what the needs are that year, or what ends up being decided are the priority projects. That piece still has a long way to go because there's a lot of ideas and a lot of needs. So it's a tax that's already in your taxes. You're already paying it. It's just changing the way we allocate it. So, thank you, Greg. Yeah.
And I think it's the original referendum, when it was passed, 100% was for open space acquisition. And then there was a subsequent referendum which the
Right.
voters passed to allow 20% of it to be used for development, not maintenance. And so the other 80%, and I think that's been since 2009 or so. The open space tax has been around for, I think, 20 years. Is that roughly correct, Ralph?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think my concern with this is that 364,000, which represents about 80% of what the tax would be, and if we do this forward-looking basis, we have a long list of things we'd like to do, which is on page 2 of the report, or page 3 rather of the report. $364,000, you know, it may be a long time before we can get to everything on the list. And just is there a more efficient way of doing it? And that's
Well,
kind of what
and
I'm
some of
asking.
them are wish things, they're not necessary. You know, it's just kind of everything that we've heard people talk about or say at different meetings and whatever. I think at some point they have to be prioritized, is what has to get done, what's really necessary to be safe, to, you know, make sure that people can get there and use it. So it is a long process. This was just about the funding, so I don't want to drag you out anymore, Greg. So, and I think we have this on the agenda later to talk about amongst ourselves. But that was just, the thing with the funding is why it became the first priority is there's a timing issue. It has to get to the county clerk by August 1st in order to get on the referendum for November.
August 16th, I'm sorry.
August 16th? Oh, okay. In order, so, you know, we wanted to allow enough time for the council to talk about it, to let the public have time to make suggestions or express their opinions on it, because we should have public hearings on it, and make sure we make that deadline. In the meantime, this ad hoc committee will continue to look at those lists, go back over the properties, talk to recreation, talk to open space, and at some point, their job will be done. I bet they can't wait.
Should people with ideas coordinate with you just for inclusion in the list, Mary Jane, or?
Yeah,
Is
I mean,
someone-
they're open to, and I think all the names of the people on the committee is on the report, so if you have ideas, and I think, you know, we'll try and have a couple of public hearings along the way, because this is something that we need the town to vote on. So we want to make sure people understand it, and people know, you know, get a chance to express their opinions and add to it, so. And I want to thank, I think there's a number of committee people here, raise your hands if you're here. And thank you for your time. These people have really been putting a lot of time into this, so thank you.
I have one more question. Just, how did we come up with the 80-20 split? I'm just curious, what was the logic behind the 80-20 number?
I believe it was modeled after like a similar proposal from New Providence, and then
Okay.
it was just, again, like looking at, I think, the scope of the properties, that seemed like a reasonable amount.
Christine? Yeah.
I just want to say that I thought the report was great, and I definitely agree with all of your whys as far as health and wellness goes. The only thing is that this has not been made available to the public, and can we do that?
Absolutely.
So if we could just get the, because it's not on the
Yeah, put it
website
on the
yet.
website.
But if you're,
Yeah, we could do that.
I like
Yeah,
the
I'd like
list.
to start the conversation and see
Yeah.
what people have to
And I
say
think
about it.
that's, the members of the audience haven't read this, and
Right.
it's a very good, you know, it's a good start.
Make it public. Fine.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Okay. The next thing on the agenda, we have an open session, so there's quite a number of issues, discussion points later on, and there's not another opportunity for an open session or to talk. So if you have something you want to talk about that's on the agenda, this is the time to say it, because then it's more like a work meeting, so people
Yeah.
can't share it.
And we are going to stick to the 5-minute rule.
They're making me use this,
Since
so.
I have been on council with Mayor Honaker and Mayor Sui, we have not. Things get out of hand. So if we engage you, the clock kind of resets, but please, just try and be brief to 5 minutes.
And please, we ask everyone, be respectful of other people in the room and what their opinions are. All right, go.
Do you have 5 minutes on each subject?
No, each person gets
Each
5 minutes.
person, that's all?
Yeah, that's
So I can
it.
go to the paper and go?
The school board is 3 minutes.
Yeah, they only have 3.
Yeah.
We're generous.
On the open space fund, as you know, over the years, we've tried to get voters to vote for a supplemental of 20%. We got, after 4 or 5 years, we got that. And that money, you can see how one project, a couple projects, takes that 90,000 and eats it up. So I always felt that the open space fund should be open like the Governor Christie said. When they started open space, it was started for the purchase of land, the design of land, the building of land, and the maintenance of land. So I don't know about the 20% that you're just going to take and save it for land when you have 7 million. I think the board, the council, should be in a position to look at the projects on a yearly basis on the full 400,000 that they get. We are so far behind in every single site that you go to in our community to make improvements. You have an opportunity here to use that money and not bank that money. We don't need any more land. We need each project, the pond, and the property around it, the drainage there. You can go and make a list. We wanted a walkway, we wanted a bridge over the dam so that you could walk this property. Go up to Pine Street. What's going on here is great, but there's curbing, there's bathrooms to be fixed up, there's all kinds of things that have to be done. You know, better sprinkler systems, maybe lights, okay? There's that, but the parking should be fixed and it should be cleaned up and money available. Pine Street Park is doing well. It's got to be maintained to the nth degree, whether it's the lawns or the tree limbs or whatever. Then go on to Polo Ground. Look at the money at the Polo Grounds. The pool has suffered from just the money that they've gotten from their membership has been used only to take care of certain items. It never had the bank that we had and the money that we raised to build the pool. And you were involved in that. It was a great thing. That was a donated facility paid for by the people. So was Pine Street. So is Evancow. So is, you know, all these different fields were built by the people. So I want you to please consider opening the open space fund up to all projects and all land on a yearly basis. The other thing I'm here today is I want to talk about the fertilization. Synthetic is the only thing that will work on these fields. It keeps our kids safe. It keeps rejuvenating itself. It grows. You don't have stones like we have in our fields coming through the earth. We don't have runoff from there. We don't have the drainage, but these fields all need drainage. We'll have the money to do that. But we tried it. We did Evancow with $500,000, over $1.2 million field. We built that field. And the council only wanted us to put topsoil on it, and that's it. Grade it, topsoil. We went to Dr. Murphy from Rutgers, came up, we designed the field, we put underground drainage, automated sprinkler, the proper loam. Guess what? The council rejected going with synthetic. You know what we got? Kermit the Frog, little things like this growing out there in the field in weeds. I'll give you another example. We got switched and we grew it great. And there's a root base there of 4 inches that grows. As soon as that sun starts shining on it, it starts growing. So you can put every number of vents on it and it'll grow back instantly. It's safe, but the whole property is done. So there's no weeds. There's no bees that we have at the pool or at these other places where the organics are being used. Take a page out of Basking Ridge, the Mountain View field, all those fields. They went to organic after starting out with synthetic. They had to rip every single field up. But the county helped them by buying $500,000 worth of swampland that helped them put their turf field back there. So
I was on council when this came about, and we did a side-by-side of the organic versus the synthetic. The organic was, if I recall, I don't know, Ralph, wasn't it a little more than double the price? I know it was double. I think it was a little more than double. And it would take between, I think the estimate between 3 and 5 years to see a result.
yes.
So we decided, I think Doug will remember, that we would only do the organic at the children's playgrounds and I think, and just the pool, right?
Pool and the common areas of Quonset.
Right, and like the kids' play areas and things. I don't see any problem with staying the way that decision was made by the former council.
Right.
I was part of that. I don't see any reason to change because the results right now are good. The people who are asking for a
You're talking
change.
about the fertilization method, is
I'm
that
talking
what-
about the fertilization
Yeah,
method.
right.
We had True Green in here, who I think who's still the current contractor who was doing it. it was cheaper with better results. We don't get the weeds like you were mentioning. So I think having the organic where we have it may be the best results, because we do have young children and it may be an issue.
That's fine, but where you have ball fields, football fields or whatever, and you have areas where they assemble to practice and whatever, those areas, the whole Evan Cow Polo Ground complex.
There's no plan to change. Yeah,
Okay.
there's no plan to change.
All right,
Okay.
time's up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Time out.
Thanks,
No plan to
Joe.
change.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I just have one comment, I think that might be good clarification for the general public when we're talking about the open space fund. There is one aspect of the acquisition portion of the funds, which is that they're eligible for green space matching funds when you're doing acquisitions. But those funds, if they were in and used for maintenance or it's not maintenance, for development of existing open space, they would not be eligible for matching funds in those instances.
Right.
So just something to consider as we think about what we're doing with these funds, you know?
Can I make a comment? You know, I agree with you, Mr. Rossi, that the funds, we ought to have more funds for maintenance and development. I am going to disagree, though, that when you comment that we don't need any more space or land. We could discuss about that later, but I would take issue with that. And also, your comment about pesticides, I think the quote was, keeps kids safe. I think that's, from a medical point of view, that's an open question.
Well, look at the synthetics though, and the products that are in it.
Oh, wait. This is where the kids are playing, as far as the younger kids. I think that's why we made the choice that we did.
Right.
Adolescents and teens are still in the developmental stage.
Okay.
Next, anyone else? David?
I'll use the office, David Neal, MJ Neal, because I'm starting to get calls going back to this multifamilies, to help them come up with proof. And to refresh my memory, why did you all go back to start from 1971?
Jack, you want to answer that?
That's when it became illegal. Prior to 1971, two families were legal in the R5 zone.
Okay, because I just recall, I remembered it this weekend, something happened with my grandmother on it. And then I'll give this to Anthony, because this is kind of what I'm dealing with. Old customer records. And finding out answers.
What is it?
It's
I don't know why, I can't answer that. Some of the
It didn't even
information
have
on there
blocks
was
and
back
Pay
in
the bill, I guess.
1929,
I
Borough tax map.
Wow.
What are you handing out here?
This is what I'm going through, it's old company records.
That's a
Just so
rec,
you can have this one, because it's now borough property, so it's not a,
looks like something off a vehicle. That's a record?
Can I sell it on eBay?
You need to read it, you need to read it in
But see, they
the
didn't
backwards
have-
in a mirror.
They didn't
Kind
have
of-
lot and block, they had section and lot.
section, everything was
Okay.
section.
Instead of
But
lot and
what
block.
does it say, two family or
But
something?
you'd run this through
But now I'm
the,
sure,
Yeah,
so
right,
there's also
right.
more information on it where it has, like, 2F, and another section that would have, what I take is two-story dwelling.
So what would the F be, family, two-family? Okay.
I gotta go back through a lot of the old
Yep.
ones.
Running across it.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to find out, what these all meant from the borough tax map in 1929. Because a lot of these places, I'm going by memory
Pretty
right now.
impressive historical.
It is.
And I mean, I've got packets for about 25 of them, that haven't even contacted me yet. I've got handwritten things from my grandmother from 1958. So, I mean, that two-family's got to be a slam dunk. And, I did put in an Oprah request to get that list. So while I'm looking at all this, hopefully do it once.
Right, and get the.
Well, I got an answer back,
that needed.
the list doesn't exist. So I did a roundabout today and did another Oprah request. I would just like to have the addresses of anybody that's registered for inspections. And we'll see what happens. But I mean, people are upset. I mean, I can't blame them. But, it appears I'm the only one that has a lot of this old stuff.
And we thank you for contributing it and for saving it all these years.
Sitting up in the
That's what
attic
you
in my
get for
garage
staying
from
here.
1970, and I've been in drawers I've never been in up there. which is kind of fun because
You come up with
the
these.
plate that's going around, that's for Margaret Squibb. You refer to it as the Dunster property.
Ah, Dunster Square, yeah.
That's how far back it's going.
Wow, okay.
And another question that I've been thinking about, did this like originate from the housing committee? It had to originate somewhere.
Squib, I don't
The
know.
Board of Adjustment did ask that
It
we
was
bring people to
before
zoning
me.
compliance.
Did Jeff give any insight of where it
I
stemmed
think it
from?
was our zoning officer.
It did come from the zoning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Jeff Price.
In their research
That's all, but I'm
process.
doing what I can because I had a call last Friday afternoon from somebody and I know about when they bought it and I knew that's who they bought it from, but I said, I need an older name.
Yeah, to
You
go
know,
back.
and happened to mention Roosevelt. So, Eleanor. So we'll see. But that's all. I mean, I just wish you could make a decision so that there's direction to get all this information out there right now, because there's people that I would think they're gonna get a letter, 5 months from now, whatever, you know, and they're just upset.
Yeah.
All right, whatever
And
you
we-
do.
When you're
have-
saying you wish we would make a decision, which decision is it?
That you could give direction to zoning to get that entire list out there ASAP.
For you to get your
Well,
records.
even for the people.
Oh, so they know what you're saying, so
the
they
question
know
is-
who's gonna
well,
get one?
We could publish the, question is, can we publish a list saying you will receive a letter at your next, recertification date? Is that the idea,
Or
or?
you may, you know, I mean, something, because,
Well, I think it's been publicized that if you have a multifamily place,
well, then I
you're gonna at some
understand
point
some
get
of them will be
contacted.
exempt
But
upon review. It's zoning.
Exactly, but I mean, I think if you know that you have a multifamily rental area, you've got to get your paperwork together. And I think to your question about where it originated, I think it came from zoning, but it really doesn't matter where it originated. We've been told by Mr. Pigeon that we have to conform to the land use law, so we have to do it.
I mean, at the end of the day, everyone needs to be on the books, like, by non-conforming or conforming, because it's gone on too long. And the Board of Adjustment's the only body that can do this, so.
Yeah. Well, and we've added you to the list of
I know,
resources on the
yeah,
letter,
Jeff did.
so, and we appreciate
Put it
your
on there, and that's why I'm.
being a resource, so thank you for that.
No.
And, and what happens is, when people want to sell these homes, they're going to have to do this anyway, so.
Right, but I mean, you've got
That's
some
why
of
if
them
you-
where that
yeah.
home's been sold 4 times since
Right.
1971. And, whether they switch to gas or whatever, the old stuff, I have. And I don't mind sharing.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, David.
Thanks.
Look, you made it within your 5 minutes.
All righty, thank you.
Okay,
And I
Steve,
think
were
the
you
reason
raising
not
your
to-
hand?
I think the reason not to publish all this all at once was not to inundate.
Right.
the
I think we-
Adjustment Committee.
yeah.
I think we agreed on that, yeah.
I think Jeff Price said they're not going to release the information until the month that is due for the registration, so it's not available to everybody until you're up for registration. So these
Right,
people
for the
aren't going to
inspection.
find out till November,
Right.
like December, so it's not, I don't believe it's public 100%.
No, I think what's just been public is that if you have a multifamily, you may get asked this,
You
yeah.
may get asked, but you haven't been notified yet if your registration is up, if you're in violation.
Right. Thank you. I know, you've been sitting there patiently trying to get up.
So I gotta pick a kid up at CCD and Boy Scouts this season.
Just- Yeah, name it.
Hi, Kathleen Williams, Round Road. I apologize, I'm not prepared. I found out about this a couple hours ago. So I'm asking the council to consider redefining the definition of residential areas. I know, my understanding was you changed the regulation, the ordinance from 5 acres down to 3 acres for bow hunting. And I'm one of the 5 houses that abuts the 4.4 acre in Laurelwood and Borough Springs.
Borough Springs, yeah.
And even when it was 5 acres, I've been kicking bow hunters off my property, sitting there, full camo, bows, sitting on an orange bucket. So I'm tremendously concerned with all the children in that area.
Excuse me a minute. Sitting on an orange, they're supposed to be in a tree stand.
Yeah, I can tell you, I've called the police, I don't know what to tell you, but my issue is this, they're already violating it. I have a small child, I have a dog, the deer run rampant throughout that entire property, that entire neighborhood. Additionally, there's a proposed walking path going through there. If we're gonna have a walking path which children are being on and people that are allowed to now be in bow things, it's just, It's very dangerous in my mind. In my house, the corner of my house is 147 feet up the edge of that property, and the entire side of my property is going to be rendered, unuseful, because if people can be sitting 150 feet off my house with a bow up in a tree stand, that's really not safe for any of the surrounding homes or children. So the neighborhood just was made aware, so our neighborhood is rallying today. Unfortunately, we all couldn't be here tonight, but we will be coming out to ask for this with a more structural proposal. So this is just my way of saying, please, for the safety of our children, children run up and down that property all the time because there's a little creek down in there. And if we're having bow hunters, and they're already breaking the law by coming in on just orange Home Depot buckets, which was the only way my son saw the bow hunter sitting there.
Well, I think what's unique about, I had a map
And
of
it's
that.
skinny, it's a long, thin,
This is Borough
4.4
Springs, and this
acres,
is, and I think what's unique about this property is you're sitting right in the
There's
middle
5
of
houses,
a residential district.
Is Ed here
so-
tonight?
Ed is here, I just saw Ed come in, and what,
Where is he?
these borough properties are
don't see
supposed
him.
to only be hunted by the clubs that the deer management
Ed
people
English, I
bring.
mean.
Not just anybody,
I
but,
hear you, but the issue is it looks really wide because we're 3 or 5 acre homes.
each, right, on each lot. But I
And in
don't
between
know if
that,
you
it
can
looks
see
like
that,
there's a
it's
lot of
this
open
piece right in
space.
there, it says
Yeah,
Borough
no, I know.
Springs.
Ed
But
English,
I
Ed English
guess
is
my
not here, though.
concern
I
is
saw
knowing
him
there's
here.
people violating the law already, and if it becomes allowed, because it's now 4.4 acres,
Yeah.
people are gonna be walking on from a residential area, either Laurelwood or Round Top, and hunting.
Yeah, I think what we were discussing with, I don't think we realized that this particular property was going to get caught in that change.
Okay.
Is that, which we did with the one piece.
It's-
Didn't we exempt one of them?
There was one, there's
Yeah,
0.69,
which
but
is-
there's, this is 4.4
Yeah, so I think we'll
acres.
discuss if we can exempt that one as well, because it's a unique piece of property, if you
And
want
it's
to look
highly
at that.
residential,
So
so
what-
there's 5 homes, all with small children.
Yeah, and they
running
kind
it.
of go right
What
around
happened
it.
when you called the police?
The guy had run off the property, and when I told him this is not a 5 acre zone, you can't be bow hunting here.
Other clarifying question, the examples that you're giving of these people doing things improper was before or after the ordinance
It
was
was
passed?
before.
It was
Yeah.
before the
Yeah.
ordinance was passed. So those things were going on already, and I understand what you're saying.
My
By changing the
concern
ordinance
is
is it increases the
Yes.
probability
Right, now that
of
we're
something like
allowing
that
it.
happening yet again.
Thank you.
Do you, I mean, it might be a dumb question, because you may not know, but when you spoke to him, do you know if he was part of the hunting club?
Honestly, I don't know.
You don't know. So it
When-
could've just
When I
been-
have a small child in my yard,
You
and
just-
he comes running back and says, "Mom, there's bow hunters in our yard." I'm like, "What are you saying?" And I go and I see a man, full camo, bow hunter, and an orange Home Depot bucket that was the only way my son saw him, was sitting on an orange Home Depot bucket.
Yeah, I'd have to think that's not someone part of the club, because
I would hope not,
they have,
but-
they have all signed that they would be in tree stands only,
Okay.
and that's how it works. The fact that this person was sitting on a bucket waiting with a bow tells me it's probably not someone that's part of it, the
But
hunting
if you
club.
look at the width of the property and where the homes are, and anyone's children running on the side of their property, and they're up in a bow stand, that causes me even more concern.
I
Yeah.
think this
It's-
topic is worthy of an entire reexamination. It's not the first time we've heard of concerns about bow hunting. It's not the second time we've heard it. We've heard more. So I think we've got to reexamine the whole thing.
Well, I think what we need to look at is, do we list, Doug, the properties specifically?
They are listed.
In that,
In the
Yes.
management plan,
It is
right,
listed.
so actually, we could direct the clubs that this, either put this on or take this off, and we can change
I think
what's
it'd be-
on the list.
Do the clubs know the boundaries? The boundaries aren't marked.
In the article on the line, there are pictures, there are boundaries marked, but you can't,
But
to
when
your
they're,
point, you
when
can't
they're
see.
there, they're not gonna know the boundaries.
Correct.
It's
Well,
not like there's a.
I mean, you
where
may
they can
still
go.
get illegal people, I mean.
Yeah, poachers are gonna do
yeah,
what
they're
poachers
gonna
do.
what
I
they
think it's
do.
be also to have the club here and maybe explain to us how they go about what they do. I mean, maybe, it's,
Yeah, they did that
they
once.
they do.
They'd be happy to come.
Maybe to revisit it every couple of years.
Yeah, I beg you to please readdress the safety of our children.
I think
Thank
the
you.
argument
Thank
that
you.
poachers are going to do it anyhow, I don't think that's a good argument. I have- with
It's good,
respect-
it's gonna be the club that's responsible perhaps, if that guy wasn't.
You know,
I don't think he'd be there anyway.
My
Yeah,
kids
to me, it's a safety issue. This is something bad waiting to happen. I made my living taking care of people who were supposed to be something safer.
Right, but if it was 12 acres, just, what his point is, someone could still show up, and they need to be shoot off the
We
property.
don't have to encourage it.
Can we-
Absolutely don't have to encourage it.
Anybody else from the public? Greg, you back up?
Again, Greg DuBois, 7 Plum
I don't think I
Road.
need to do this.
Real briefly, just on the fertilization of the grass and the turf in town. I am part of the Little League. It came to our attention that this was something that was going to be discussed. I am not an expert in synthetic fertilizer or organic fertilizer, and I think we don't really care. But what I would say is what we are doing now is great. The fields are holding up really well. You know, we have a very limited, I think, amount of fields. They get a lot of play at Kiwanis. They'll go from April 1st, and we play till October 31st. And they held up great last year in heat. They held up great. We had a ton of rain. At the Rose Bowl, we played, you know, again, the same timeline. And then in the fall, they added soccer to it. And again, the grass held up really, really well. I certainly don't know, you know, the medical aspects of synthetic versus not synthetic. But I think what Mr. Rossi was referring to with safety is if the field isn't smooth and true, you know, little kids are trying to field the ball hops, hits them in the nose. We lost, you know, kid lost a tooth last year. Someone talked about clover in the fields not being a big deal. Bees come to the clover. We have kids with EpiPens all throughout our league, 400 kids. So again, like, I'm no expert, but we certainly like the way the fields are now. We get a lot of compliments on how the grass is and how it's held up. And I would just ask you guys to consider that as the debate continues, that for the moment it's going well. And we're certainly happy to learn more about it as an organization, myself included, but they are holding up very well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public have a burning desire? Henry? Oh, wait, there's somebody. Go ahead.
Good evening. I'm Alice Struble. I live at 87 Old Army Road. And I just wanted to also comment on the use of synthetic versus organic on fields. I, like Greg, am also not an expert, but in light of some of the medical studies that are happening and basically the knowledge that certain chemicals are carcinogens and can impact the health of our community, it's imperative that we make sure that we're not endangering the safety of our kids and our community by using materials and chemicals that can have a negative impact. So as a concerned community person who has a family member who just went through a round of chemotherapy to treat lymphoma, I think that you know, we need to explore organic options.
Thank you, Alice. Yes.
Do you want to?
Do you want to do you now? Yeah, sure. Ann?
Great.
Come on up. That way you can go home early.
That's good. So, I would assume everybody's read this letter.
This is Ann Peterson.
Friends from Greater Bernardsville. We did baskets, we did gardens, we create gardens, but we're running into expenses that we can't really handle. We do get donations, we do solicit for things, but not enough is coming in. I would say in about 2 years we'll be out of business. So I was coming to you to see if you could help us in some way monetarily, because we are a public service. And put up all the baskets are going up just before Memorial Day.
So you're okay for this year? Is that what this is?
Okay for this year.
So we're not like having a panic right yet, so
No.
good. Because I did talk to,
Panic is
in the
about
future.
2 years.
Yeah.
We're going to have weeds and what have you. And I think you want to attract people to Bernardsville.
Absolutely.
Because silly baskets help to brighten it up, and the gardens look pretty good. So, yes.
Personally, I'd like to say thank you for 16 years of service. When I drive downtown, I notice the baskets. So thank you and your whole group for what you've done so far. You know, if there's something we can do, the mayor mentioned to me earlier about the idea of maybe,
How about open space?
yeah.
Actually, I talked to Olivia Manning, who is in charge of this downtown Bernardsville, and she was interested in meeting with you because she thinks that she may be able to incorporate you into her program and maybe get some new people to help you and get some volunteers, because she's attracting a lot of young people.
Actually, I've been digging, and I've gotten a few volunteers.
Excellent.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Um,
And she's really good at marketing and fundraising, so I think,
Well, that
but
would
she
be-
offered to meet with you and see if,
That would be great.
yeah, so I will
Great.
put her in touch with you, and
Would you?
absolutely, yeah.
That hopefully will, in 2 years maybe we can.
Yeah, that's good, because that gives us some time to,
Gotta get someone to take over my place.
now what do you do with yourself,
I'm gonna
right?
be an effigy up there.
We didn't vote on that.
Oh, God. Well, anyway, that's good.
And you can, somebody told me you were part of the Shade Tree originally, yes?
Yes. Well, what happened was the Shade Tree couldn't solicit for money.
Ah,
And
okay.
so our group was started, and all was fine in the beginning, and we could support these expenses.
Mhm.
But through the years, the big guys have gone away.
Yeah,
So we
Okay.
definitely need a little help, and it's a slow process.
yeah. Well, thank you for reaching out, and I will definitely try and get that meeting set up, and we'll
That'd be wonderful.
get
We
that
just,
going.
to help her get members, because you and I had talked, and you told me that you had lost about half your membership
We did.
because people had moved out of town or just retired and whatnot. So can you just tell us how many people you had in your group and how many you currently have, so we can
We
encourage people
had-
if they're interested to join?
We had 13 members. We now have 5.
So there are
But
opportunities
now
for anybody
I've
listening
got
and streaming. you
2
know.
more, I hope.
Mhm.
Somebody is going to help with photography, somebody who I hope will help with grants, because we do like to apply for grants. And
That's good.
somebody who will help with the appeal letter. I feel like a one-armed band.
And a treasurer, you need a treasurer, right?
Oh, my God, we need a treasurer.
Yeah,
Yes, that's pretty desperate.
yeah.
Next question.
Yeah.
What is your largest expense?
The watering.
Maybe there's something.
Watering the
there's something
baskets.
there.
If we have a drought here, which last year was good, that was about 8,000, but it's
How much?
usually 10,000.
10,000.
For the watering, you know, of the
I might take
baskets.
that job too.
Okay.
Maybe we can find someone. We'll work on it. We'll work on it.
So you work on the gardening?
Yes.
Okay, and I believe I brought some.
Mums.
The mums are the garden club, right? I think.
You went to the businesses and for fall, I'm not from here, so. What are those plants?
The mums.
The mums.
The mums.
Yeah, that's the garden club. That's the garden club. Yeah,
You did good.
that was good, yeah.
Because I'm just wondering, like, so things like that, like, I do not have a green thumb, and I so want to support things like that, but I'd rather just give a donation.
There you go.
Getting flowers. You know, but that's what I'm saying, like, I'd rather, with my stepsons that are in the band at the high school, they always want to sell me a box of oranges, but I'm not going to eat a box of oranges. So they just have to implement where there's just a donation to the clubs rather than actually getting something back.
Yeah.
Well, we do send out letters to the whole.
Yeah. Well, Christina is Bling by Design, you know that little business? Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
A little free advertising there.
But you also, the
5 minutes.
Friends for
Oh,
Greenery
yeah.
Bernardsville also has a website that takes PayPal.
Yes, we do. So
Yeah.
that's good.
Little promotion.
Okay.
So good.
All right,
Thank you.
we will talk.
All
All right, thank you so much, Ann, and thanks for all you do.
Well, thanks for.
Anyone else? Henry?
That should be Keep America Green, right?
Right.
Anyway, I'm Henry Rushman, I live over there. And good evening, Mayor,
Good
Good
evening.
evening, council members.
Good evening.
I need a few notes because
There you go.
I'm not really good at this. Thank you for allowing me to address the council for the second time regarding the blatant blasting of one or two of the NJT roads. And thank you for allowing the mayor to write a letter to NJT on my or our behalf. And strangely, the first positive news happened today.
Okay.
I got back from Europe on Friday, and it was no joy. But this morning, only one real bad dog was around, and he was there at 642 at Meeker Road. And the 442 guy is a wonderful guy, 4 a.m. guy, and he blows just boop, 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 boop. Done. 4 times like he has to. And the 449 guy is the same guy. He goes the other way. He's good. Same guy. The 525 and the 532, also cool guy. He doesn't do anything bad. The 605 guy, the bad dog, he wasn't there this morning. And because I'm still on German time, that's why I was able to write all this stuff 5 hours ahead of time. Anyway, at 6:42 today, the ignorant, the rogue, the bad dog, blew his head off at both crossings. The Meeker Road crossing and this crossing, but strangely quick. And didn't blow these like he usually does. So maybe somebody said something to him. But it didn't help us any down by Meeker Road. So the 705 guy is not bad. The 732 guy, he's not bad. The 738 guy, he's not bad either. So I have some suggestions to ease the Meeker Road problem. Number one, Meeker Road is a gated crossing. And the regulations for gated crossings are flexible. And they don't have the same blast length and loudness blast requirements that non-gated crossings have. We have a couple of non-gated ones, and realistically, we're pretty well insulating everybody else because we have all this land, so it's not really a problem. Another suggestion would be to write another letter, but maybe a bit more legalese. So in order to try to avoid a written complaint, which I've never done and I don't want to do, for disturbing the peace unnecessarily. I don't know if you can even do that anymore, but that might be an idea. And then the reason is the previous letter was never able to persuade them to contact me. Yes, they left me a message to call them back, but I called them back 4 times and left detailed messages and nobody ever called back. So another thing is, as a partial owner of Meadowbrook, I will be deeply grateful to the borough as to what happens to the land upon my demise. Perhaps it will be a target for some of your open space stuff. I know there's been negotiations about that. Hey, I'm not here. I don't care what you do with it. And my family is pretty well, my personal family, not my brother and sister, are pretty well resigned to the fact that we're probably just going to give it away. And so while I'm there, I sure would enjoy a little quiet, at least for the last year. Anyway, and unfortunately, the last time I was here, the Beeville News made a few small reporting errors and omissions, which have resulted in more unpleasant family flack. So siblings is not always easy. So, I think I'm almost finished. I still got a minute? Okay.
Yeah.
Let me see. I feel the borough has a little more clout than it's willing to use because of the sparse population around the Meeker Road crossing. I come here asking for your help. I just spent 9 nights in European hotels and motels, and they were all quieter than Bernardsville between 6 and 7 a.m. These are big cities, by the way, that have trucks and everything, but not a problem. Anyway, if a trucker behaved as badly as these guys do, his firm would be dealt with, and he wouldn't have the blessings of the transit police, which don't allow your police even on the train. Because I'd ask your police, Kevin, if he would send somebody there to ask the guy why he's doing this, and the transit police wouldn't let them go near the train. Anyway, so they have the police to hide behind. And that's all I have to say about that. As a side note, I returned Thursday night from Europe, where I was researching my ancestors for my current project. And that is a non-fiction novel. And it will basically battling post-modernism. And a possible title would be The History of Meadowbrook Glitter, My Father and Me.
Excellent.
Amen. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Henry.
Thank you.
Can't wait to see the first edition.
Well, it probably won't be printed. It'll probably be one of these, I think Amazon publishes
Yes.
stuff for you.
Yeah.
So I need a good stenographer if you ever have any time.
Henry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Henry.
Good night.
Henry, you're not going to leave me out of it, right, when it burns out there?
What?
You're not going to leave me out of it, right?
Out of what?
When it burnt, when the Meadowbrook burnt, the farm, the building burnt down, I was there jacking him with the foot. Remember?
No.
Anyone else?
Why wouldn't I?
Yes? Jeff, are you coming up? Oh, you're leaving, okay. Thought you were.
I've heard enough.
Okay.
I thought you would follow him, but it's a tough act to follow.
Yes. Okay.
Hi, I'm Carrie Hazelton, 397 Minebrook Road. I just wanted to put in a word for the bees and their ability to coexist with the kids on the fields. I think it's important, obviously, for kids to play. I've been playing for 18 or 20 years on the Basking Ridge fields. They've been organic since 2008, and I was over there just the other day walking the dog, and I said, "Gee, these fields are greening up. They look absolutely great. They're holding up better." I think a lot of the use of the field has transitioned onto some of the turf. For some reason, the teams seem to be preferring the turf at this point. They can get on earlier. Come the summertime, the turf is unplayable. It's so hot, it'll burn you through your cleats. It's just really, really bad. I think it's important to have quality grass fields, but I also think it's important to have bees. I see so many fewer in terms of honeybees, and there's all the wild bees. The insecticides are indiscriminate killers of insects. They don't care whether you're a grub or a bee that we need to do the pollinization for our food, and to make sure that the birds have proper food, and the birds are then eaten by, the whole food chain thing. We've got the circle of life going on. And I just think that, I know it can be a long-term process, but I feel like it would be something that we should revisit, get the numbers together. I understand about the bees and the possibility of bee sting. I've never seen one in all my coaching or playing years happen. I know they would happen, it could happen, but we don't have all the information about what we're putting on these fields and what they're doing to our kids and what they're bringing home on their uniforms. In search for uniform grass, what are we bringing home to our houses? What are we putting into our kids' noses and mouths? And I'm concerned about it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. I'll
Close the
close the public session.
Can I ask one question? Is there going to be any discussion about the field, the turf?
It's further on the agenda, but then there won't be a chance for public input, so,
There will not?
no, there won't. So now is the time. If you
About
had
field?
something else to say, you want to,
Yeah, I do.
okay?
So do we have a motion to grant him 5 more minutes?
Do we have to have a motion?
I don't know. I thought that's what we were doing.
The field.
You're talking, this is a different topic
The
you're
turf
talking
field,
about.
the county field that
Oh.
they built for us.
Oh, that you're talking about, okay.
Yes. What is happening about it? That has destroyed all of our growth of any of our athletics. It's taken away the use of fields. It hasn't been drained. The drainage was improper. It wasn't built to the 100-year storm. It isn't the right size. The water is running off of it, down onto Lower Polo, undermining Lower Polo. So that's becoming more unplayable. And of course, Lower Polo hasn't been reset again and topsoiled and planted again in many years. The high school has the same problem. The field situation keeps getting worse and worse. The only thing that's standing up to all this is Evan Cow and the high school field that we built. We have more and more kids and more mothers in the lower schools because of the high school situation and them not allowing us to play on that field, which we donated to them. People of Burnsville donated to them for everyone's use, not just for the school use. They have plenty of time that it can be open to be played and not to be paid for. Every single field that they play it on, they never paid for, okay? We have paid for everything, whether it be in volunteers. My grandfather built the polo grounds, the Lower Polo. I was a young kid on a dirt road going back there when Sini didn't have a house. My uncles were in football. They got their, like I said, my grandfather and his friends. Then my uncles and their friends. The pool, Mrs. Englehart gave us $25,000. My mother and the rest of them all walked around with cans, paper cans, and put dollar bills in it to build it. I mean, the town has really been nothing with it. We need to be protected. We need to get this back. That $1 million field is worth $400,000 or less for what they did. The only thing any has any value there is the turf itself, to roll it up and move it so we can build it, a new field under it with the 100-year storm rating on it, like the high school field. You can go there in a 7-inch rain and you can stand right there and watch the water dissipate. People come there and can't understand it. There's 10,000 tons of stone on it. They took stone and they smeared it on the ground over there. Plus they took 175 loads of topsoil off the property. You know what 107? And we told them at the meeting, that is our topsoil, the town's topsoil. They needed a permit to do that. You know what 175 loads of topsoil is? A lot of money. But look at the disruption of what happened. Why was the field moved? There was no sensitive area there. That's stormwater running down through the woods. That's not a Class A stream. They moved it and they left all that land, took land away from us. That was playable land all the way to the old, what do you call it, scoreboard. So something must be done. We need to work on redesign. We need to work on a permit, a stormwater permit for the corner so we can go back. We wanted to build at that time when I brought those plans here, to build a regulation hardball field, which we don't have. Then the softball field would have been built. We would have had the football, lacrosse, all at the right sizes, all at the right dimensions. Do you know that 10 feet off the side is a curve, the anchoring curve? Go up to the high school and walk the high school field. That's the plans that we laid out here at the council. And there's 20, 30 feet to that curve. Any kid could be pushed or running and just trip and land on that concrete curb or in the fence. It's just, we need to take that back. The county gave us nothing when they gave us that field. I was on the council for 12 years. We sent them $120 million. Are you proud that they don't take care of our roadway coming in here? Mendham Road, look, you'd almost fall off it. Why isn't that road taken care of like South County?
Mendham Road is going to be done from the Black Horse Inn all the way to our library this summer.
I know, but that isn't the problem. You know what the problem is?
Well, I'm just addressing your
I know, but you know what the problem is? There's no drainage. There's no breakdown lane. It's a dangerous road. Is there any reason with the taxes that we pay and send to the county that road isn't widened with a shoulder and rock walls taken, like there's a couple down Fenwick's property, the entrance there, it's right on the road. We want it redesigned. We're entitled to that. We got nothing from the county. In all the years, you know what I had to do? I had to beg for a bridge, a $100,000 bridge over at Pill Hill. You know what they told me? Oh, that doesn't have the right flow. I said, it doesn't have the right flow. I said, okay, I want you to send me a list of all the county projects that you've done in Bernardsville. Guess what? I got a call the next day, I got the bridge. And the same thing what they wanted to do with the entrance to our community. We have stone walls, stone houses, whatever. They wanted to put the road barriers from 78 down in Hillside.
Well, we all pushed back on that, and we got our way on that too.
We did, but we had to fight for it, though. You know what I'm saying? So the county, okay, 5 minutes up. Thank you very much.
All right, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
So just a few clarifying points, because I think sometimes some information gets out and I'm not exactly sure where the sources are. So we requested information, it's been published on our website for 3 months now about the regulation size of the field. So the NFHS, that's the National Federation of State High School Associations, regulation field sizes for football, soccer, lacrosse, and football are all consistent with the size of Veterans Memorial Field. So that information is on our website, and that information came from the National Federation of State and High School Associations. Additionally, more recently, we received information about specifically the padding and the fencing on the Veterans Field. And the 3 different organizations that provided input to us all said that the fencing with padding, as is currently on there or is currently being installed.
In the process of being installed.
Because there's a lot that's already up there. They're putting even more padding on it?
There's more coming.
Okay, so there's padding on it. There's additional padding coming.
It has to come around the corner.
Okay, and based on that information and what we've most recently received, the fence meets the regulations for the football with the padding, and the organizations which have been referred to, because there's several different organizations, I just want to make sure I get them correct. One organization was the NJSYFL Commissioner Russell Yeager sent us information saying that 5 yards from the end line and anything shorter requires pads over the posts, but then that's acceptable. There's additional information from the NJSIAA as well, and that includes high school level football programs. So the information that we received is that the field, as it's being modified, meets the requirements of all the organizations, and that the dimensions of the field are appropriate.
But, I don't know, that's not what we're getting from the high school, that they can't play on it, they can't have games on it, they can practice on it.
So it's not the high school, it's the middle school age, I think, that you're talking about.
Whatever.
We're talking about the organization that they're part of that league. That's the note that came from the commissioner, the Mountaineers, the commissioner of the NJSYFL, Russell Yeager, commissioner of that league, sent us this information on April 5th.
Tom, are you satisfied with that field?
I think that there was a large debate when I was not on the council about whether or not that was the optimal design, and I think that was approved by a prior council that I wasn't on. I reviewed the video of you presenting when the field was approved, and you had other ideas as well as a couple other people. I'm not going to comment on that because it predated my time on the council.
Yeah.
But I was addressing specific concerns that you were saying, and that have come up, they've been published in public, they've been statements that have made in other meetings and other venues, which I think is providing sometimes data that's not consistent with the data that I've seen and has been most recently supplied. So I just want to make sure we have a baseline understanding, everybody's working off the same set of facts.
I'll have to look at that because I don't know why, and I don't know why it's so different from the high school field and the lab.
Well, wait a minute.
You were on the council, yes?
There was a very detailed and very specific statement of work. I think you remember that was available for us when that was first given to us to review. Maybe I missed it, maybe I wasn't here when I don't recall ever hearing these concerns then when we reviewed the statement of work, which laid out every minutia detail of the size and scope of that field.
Well, I never
So, I mean, we're doing this way after the fact. The thing's there now. Why didn't we talk about this then?
I came to a meeting, if you look at the film, and the field that I presented to you was a field that took the full length all the way to where the field is today.
No, I remember that, but there
And
was,
it was-
boundaries because of the wetlands and then the...
There was no wetlands
Well, it's
there.
the stream, whatever it was with the spotted tree frog thing they found, we couldn't go, whatever it was,
Okay.
we had limits, but that wasn't us saying, or even the county saying, that was a DEP.
That's when, there is an area in the back there where we could have gotten a permit. We were using that field for 70 years, that field has been there, with the grass right to the edge of the woods. So what environmental problem is that it was being used as a field?
I don't remember their answer.
Why was it ripped up and 40 feet taken away from us?
Doug,
And
can
now
you
it's
lend
just
anything
laying
to that?
there.
Do you remember? Because I remember it was a DEP issue that limited how far we could go. It wasn't us.
But if
and
that was the case, we could have applied for a DEP permit, and I wanted to do that for the lower field. So we did one permit for that whole area. If there was a question, it's $20,000, but that $20,000 has cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars. Because that field right now also doesn't drain, so when we get cold weather, the water freezes on that field.
I can't
So
speak to the dollars of it. I mean, I'll take your word for it, but...
I've built enough of them, so I know the cost.
And I agree, you probably have. What I'm saying is, I think that, I mean, Jack, does this ring a bell at all?
No, you know what, I'm not looking, listen, I'm not looking, I don't want to look back.
But you are. I mean, that's what we've heard is
Well,
that, in your
I'm
opinion, a
looking back
mistake.
because it's created a problem for our community. And all I'm saying is I want to move forward. I want the turf rolled up. I want to go back and put the 100-year storm in like we did at the high school, and then roll it back out again. Because right now, the field itself, and I've talked to all the turf guys around, they've all talked about it, how bad it was. But that field freezes because the water will not run off it. So it's right in the splines. And they can pull the actual seams apart with all the water that's laying on it. So that's the problem. And if the kids go on it while it's frozen, then the splines are going to break. I'm just trying to, I want to go forward. I don't care what has to be done. The county, we have a lot of money up there, we send them a lot of money. Just have them come back and do it right. If you don't believe that how about all the fields that they have built? I'd like to Oprah every single field that they've built, North Plainfield, Greenbrook, Boundbrook, Somerville, all the fields that they've built in the county. And I'd like to have them show us what they built for those towns versus what we've gotten.
I'd be happy to see that.
You know, that would be something that I'd like you to, Mayor, have our council, you know, Jack, Oprah those, whoever Oprah's them. And let's look at what they've built in other towns.
Well, look, Jack and Ralph, when we presented our problem to the county, because they were partners with us in this, and they were actually the designers, I think, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, they were.
And they,
That was the biggest mistake.
let me finish, they volunteered to take care of the fencing by putting the padding up, but they weren't gonna take any other responsibility. So I'm getting to Mr. Rossi's point that, well, we should get the county to pay the $400,000 to fix it. The likelihood of that is slim to none, would that be fair to say?
Well, can I just clarify, fix it, whether or not it was built to a 100-year storm depends on whether or not it was specified to
Yes,
that
that's
level.
correct.
So if it could be built to spec, which means it's not a deficiency, it's just not as good as what Mr. Rossi's proposing it should
In
be.
fact, that's what we found out.
I'm just asking.
It was built to spec.
We need to, there's some culpability if it was not built to specification. But I haven't seen any information that says that yet. So this idea about the 100-year storm, maybe that's a good proposal, but if it was not included in the original specification, then I don't know that we're saying, that's not what I would define as a deficiency. That's just not, it wasn't designed that way. And I'm asking, I don't know. Was it designed that
That's the
way?
purpose of building a turf field.
I don't recall it in the statement of
Porous.
work, to be honest with you. I don't recall it.
Okay.
Anyway, okay.
Yes, wait,
All right.
Steve?
I've been dealing with this for a while with the drainage, Steve Reynolds. I'm talking to Andrew Schwartz, who's the Vice President of Field Turf, and he's seen my videos and he's admitted there's been a problem. He doesn't know if it's their problem or somebody else's problem, so he is going to reach out to me when he has somebody that can come out and do some tests to find out if it's something that they need to address or if it goes anywhere further.
And this is the company that installed it, or not, or provided it. There's
Not the
another
company that
company.
did the subgrade underneath. It was, they're the Land Tech and Field Turf are the ones that provide the turf, so.
Andrew Schwartz is,
Vice President.
Vice President.
of the company's name is
Field turf.
Field Turf.
They sell it to the actual guy. There's
That
another
then
guy
it's-
lays it down.
that actually
Land
is-
Tech lays it down.
Land take, lays it down.
So, I saw in the videos, it said it absolutely shouldn't be acting that way, you know, a year plus after being installed. So as soon as I get some information, I'll let everybody know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, let's close this up.
Okay, we will close the public session. Moving on the agenda. We lost all our people here. We lost our audience. All right, we have an ordinance for public hearing. So I will open the public hearing on ordinance 2019-1800, an ordinance concerning fees for applications for certifications of nonconformity and use variances, and supplementing and amending Article 15 of the Borough Land Development Code entitled Fees and Escrow Deposits, and Article 3 entitled Zoning Board of Adjustment. So, public hearing is open. Would anyone like to be heard on this? This is actually an adjustment to the people that are going through those multiple family housing so that their fees are not going to be as high as they originally were. So they'll only pay one application fee.
As long as they apply for two things at
Right,
once.
they apply for the certificate and the variance at once. It's a $200 application fee, so.
I'll move.
Okay, moved by
Did we have any
Mr.
open?
Schmidt. We have to close the public
Oh,
session
sorry.
first. Anybody from the public want to be heard? And we'll close the public session. Motion to pass on final reading and adopt as published.
Move.
Mr. Schmidt.
I'll second.
Roll call vote.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Greenfield?
Yes.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes?
Mr. O'Day?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Would you move this since you're the buildings?
Sure.
Grounds person?
I move that ordinance 2019-1801, ordinance authorizing the White Neck Road Bank Stabilization Project and appropriating $120,000, therefore from the Capital Improvement Fund, be introduced by title, passed on first reading, published according to law, and that a public hearing be scheduled for a meeting beginning at 7 p.m. Monday, April 22nd, 2019. Just a quick comment on this. This goes back about almost a year and a half in Public Works. And I'm seeing this number really for the first time. It was, I guess, I recall around 80 to 85. Something must have gone a little deeper into the problem once they really dug into it, because this has really gone up a lot more than I remember from the initial estimate. But I guess it is what it is.
We talked about this at the last Public Works Committee meeting, and at the time, I believe it was reviewed as something that we had to do. It was not optional, that we had kind of pushed it off as far as
It became an emergency thing, because the banks
I
are starting to go underneath and may collapse the road. But I didn't think it was going to be more than the 80 originally.
I don't know, Doug, this is the only number I saw, because I'm on Public Works this year, but not last year, so I don't know.
Is this the project we just were at DEP about? Yes.
There's quite a bit of permitting.
Yes.
Quite a bit of engineering that has to be done, because they're suggesting that if the AV mast is next to the road, we're redirecting the stream back.
Oh.
Yeah.
From the road onto the property that's there, changing the flow.
Remember our first couple meetings when Bob Riley was saying, 75 to 80, but now it's 120. I don't recall that something must have been found that it's a little more work than they thought.
Yeah, the DEP has a lot more requirements.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot more involved. As they said, it would have been better if it collapsed, right? Because then it'd be an emergency and we'd fix it right away, but.
But I think also, just for clarification for the public, this is not something we really have much option on. It's pretty much something we have to do.
Yeah.
If you've been on that road, you can see how it's, the road, the side of the road is almost gone. It's really, at some point, if we leave it, it'll be very dangerous, so. Second?
We actually have in our plan that we're going to put a temporary guide rail. We're going to put a guide rail there temporarily.
Oh, good.
All the permits and everything.
Yeah, that'll be a good thing to do, yes. Second? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay. All right, we have resolutions 1982 to 1988. Anyone want to pull anything or have questions on any of them?
I just have a comment.
Yes?
So on 1988, approving membership for the fire company, I'd like to thank Paul Rye for volunteering for our fire department. Just recognize that, appreciate the volunteerism.
Yeah, we've had one almost every meeting.
Yeah,
It's been
it's
really
very good.
impressive.
Yeah,
I
that's-
know,
That's great.
yeah. Anything else? Any other questions or?
No?
Okay, somebody want to move 1982 to 1988?
Second.
All right, roll call vote.
Mrs. Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. O'Day?
Yes.
Mr. Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Greenfield?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
All right, 6C, we were talking, this is in response to the report, I think that we had from the Field Committee, is talking about the timing and content for a potential public referendum on open space. We probably need Jack to review the question, the proposed question, and for legalese, first of all, and then if people have comments or edits, or you want to discuss different configurations of it, or...
I had suggested this particular agenda item. The reason is the last time I was speaking to Jack Pigeon, he said that the last time we did a referendum, it went through a number of drafts, I think something like 8 drafts. And I wanted to make sure that, you know, we would have some timing built in so that we're not doing this at the last minute. We're up against the deadline of August 16th, and we either haven't had the opportunity to, you know, share information or gather information from the public, and we haven't had, you know, enough time to debate the appropriate wording. That's why I wanted to begin the discussion now, thinking in advance if there were, you know, a number of drafts, and we have, you know, 2 weeks in between our meetings, you know, it would take some time to get this done and you know, do it in a way that increases the probability of getting broad support in the public for doing this kind of thing.
I think
So-
part of the problem, what delayed it last time, Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was about the definition of maintenance versus development and whether we wanted to include maintenance.
That was one of the issues, yes.
Yeah, and I think there was also a proposal to increase the tax at one point from 2 cents to 4 cents.
Where did the committee come
so-
down on the maintenance thing?
It was just worded.
That it's not maintenance.
Okay, good.
It's the division, it was the definition of development, what
Maintenance
actually.
was never,
Yeah, okay.
state law allows acquisition, development, and maintenance. But the council has been clear on both occasions, both
Right.
prior occasions, that we did not want to include maintenance.
Right, and then it was defining what development actually is.
That's right, so I got the definition of development, I think I renamed it regulation.
Yeah, so that's been resolved. Right?
Did it fail because of that, or because people thought it was
No,
an
it didn't
additional
fail.
tax?
It didn't fail.
But I think 9 or 10 years ago, they went through a whole bunch of iterations. What I like about what, you know, this guys did is it basically uses the one used 10 years ago, and it doesn't change anything unless we change it. You know, it's faithful to the idea of acquisition, which, you know, I've heard a lot about. People want that, but it's also appreciative of the need to improve what we have. So, you know, and to, you know, the idea of like coming up with a list first, I think that's a conversation that would really never end. We could spend all the money in theory and still be on the bottom of that list. So the funding should come first, then we can have that lively conversation, you know.
But I don't
after
think
the
that's
fact.
what 6C is about. I think the idea here was that this, my understanding was this was proposed before we got the actual proposal from the group, and we just wanted to make sure we had enough time, or at least I'm speaking for Tom, I shouldn't really, but Tom wanted to make sure there was enough time so that if there were subtleties that were argued back and forth, that we wouldn't run out of time in order to get the proposal
I'm not-
on the ballot. That's
And
all.
I think, honestly, I think it can be done next week. I don't see a lot of, you know, daylight
Well,
to.
what I would suggest is, Jack, if you would review what the committee submitted, and everyone else look at the copy, read it, you know, make notes on it, and send them, I guess, to maybe Jack as to comments or changes or wording you think should be different. And maybe you can kind of consolidate them if they're legitimate, and then we can look at the next draft.
Because I think it's
I
important.
think
that
this goes back to my original point, though, about whether or not we want to take a change in the way we're going to allocate funds going forward, which then puts us into this, like, kind of like wait-and-see mode, which we're going to wait and see what the projects are, we're going to wait and see how much money we have, we're going to wait and see which one we can afford in year one, which ones we can afford in year two. And I think it provides, I think, a level of uncertainty to the public who's going to vote on this. And if we could...
Well, that's a conversation you can have concurrently, get it on the books for the voters, go to the voters, and then have that conversation. It's important, the timing too. As everyone gets outside, it'll be on their minds. By June 25th and people disappear for the summer, you know, I feel like it's kind of lost and forgotten.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to get it, you know, done and dusted. At least the question for the ballot. And we can have that conversation over the course of the spring and summer.
Right. I mean, that was what this discussion was going to be about, because we didn't know that the proposal was going to be on the same agenda.
Anyway, was that, should we just, everybody put their comments on it? I mean, I don't want to sit here all night debating words.
One thing that struck me, you're going with this question, and we've got time to decide, as I read through the preparation for the meeting, although it followed my format from whenever we amended it last time, 2009, I think. I thought it should be streamlined, and maybe this time we shouldn't include the whole history.
That might, because it is long. Yeah.
Tonight's agenda, it got kind of confusing just because it's really irrelevant. I think if I just state the current status.
Okay.
As opposed
To,
you know,
yeah,
we
the
can
first one.
publicize the history on the website or whatever, but I think it's too long the way it is.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think I've even seen it before, but as I read through it tonight, it really struck me.
Right.
It's kind of unwieldy.
Okay, so why don't we let Jack do his thing and send us your recommendation, and then we can all add our pieces, get them back to Jack, and then we'll have a new draft to review at the next meeting. Okay?
The
All right.
recommendation will only be as to style, not to substance.
I think that all of this discussion though presupposes that we're just going to switch it to 80-20 the other way. And I just, you know, to me, we haven't really discussed to any great degree if that's the ideal approach. It's just, I don't know if we should default to one approach without actually discussing the pros and cons. If there's $2 million worth of projects on the list, and, you know, John, I think you presented a list at the end of last year for, was it $2 million worth of work at the turf field?
Oh, maybe, I don't recall, but.
You presented a letter that came up with numbers like that. You know.
Well, that was involved lights and the snack shack and everything.
Right? I mean, am I
Yeah, maybe, so I'd have to go back and look at the minutes or
So
something.
anyway, rather than saying there was a particular number with a letter, you provided a letter that had a very large number associated with it.
Okay.
And I'm just saying that, you know, $364,000, we could end up, you know, needing that money for 5 or 6 years.
Well, that's the whole conversation has to be had. I mean, it's obviously, you
Right.
can't do everything all at the same time, so it'll force us to actually make, you know, decisions with priorities, so. And like I said, kind of like a self-constraining budget, because it kind of keeps, you know, I know we're all fiscally responsible, but we want to make sure whoever's sitting in these seats 8 years from now or what have you has the same sort of like stabilizers on their decision-making.
So in terms of timing, not having been involved with the referendum before, you're going to streamline the language, Mr. Pigeon. We're going to send you our comments. This is all presumably going to get done within 2 weeks, or maybe 4, but then it comes back to us. Then do we vote on that as a final, or is there time to circulate that to the public?
No, I think we would have a public hearing.
We would have a public hearing first.
So the public hearing would be after we look at the language 2 weeks from now.
Yes.
Right.
But not at the same meeting?
No.
No.
Okay, that's
I
what I
think it's why Mr. O'Day wanted to start now, because you just have to adopt the resolution before August 16th, so.
Right.
It's plenty of time.
Yeah. And we do it by resolution, so we do a resolution saying we want to submit this to the clerk. We don't do an ordinance, it's a resolution from the council, giving permission to submit it for the ballot. And if anyone, I don't know, does anybody have a problem with the 80-20, the way that it's written, or is it a different proposal, or?
I have a different proposal.
Okay.
So, what I've been talking about is a way to get all of the programs funded at one time, rather than having people get in line over the next 5 or 6 years and saying my project's more important than your project, which I think is a debate that's kind of hard to have. If we had a broad base of projects identified, and we had, you know, input from Doug about what we think the appropriate pricing, you know, would be approximate for these different projects, then, you know, we could go ahead and we could do these projects in parallel. And I just think that there's some benefit to that from the public's perspective. You know, it's not everybody, you know, wants one thing. Some people are interested in different things, and if we could deliver that as a council, a resolution which provides funding for different projects, that might have broader appeal.
So what's your proposal?
So as I've said a couple times, I think that there's a scope to say, you know, if there's $2 million worth of projects that we need to do across the town, broadly based, some in, you know, some areas, some in other areas, and we said we were going to take a one-time injection of switch money from the acquisition piece and put it a lump sum, you know, of number into the development side. Then you could do multiple projects at once. It wouldn't be a matter of, you know, people having to jockey for, you know, my proposals should be year one proposal, my proposal should be a year two proposal, I have to wait till year 6.
Okay,
to get my
Jackie,
money.
can you do that? Can we tap into that 7 million? I thought we couldn't because it's already been part of the
Right now,
original
we can't.
referendum.
Case law to my knowledge on that question, but I would think since it's a public referendum, that would probably be upheld. But yes, it's tough. As I say, I'm not aware of any case law whether you can invade the purpose, but
But that money was put aside based on what the public voted on.
correct.
That's what they approved, that this money goes to acquisition. And so now to ask them to undo that and take it out,
Wouldn't this work, wouldn't the referendum just be going forward, not money that already exists?
The way it's written today, the way the proposal
I
is
have
written.
reservations about that, no matter what number you put on it, I
It's not
think
gonna
it'll never be enough, and, I mean, you could also, theoretically, you can, borrow money to do this and use some of this fund to pay it back, too, so I think, just from an overall financial perspective, I think what they propose makes a lot more, a lot more sense to me, because I don't think no matter what number you put on, you can spend all that money and still, people would be in line saying,
Well, you can
Where's
spend that
mine?
money, and then in 2 years later, you can have a list just as long to spend
Oh,
another
yeah.
$2 million.
and I think it also goes in being faithful to the idea that we will have money to acquire land as it comes up, it's.
well,
Yeah,
and
I don't-
continually doing projects.
So I'm not sure that financially it's a slam dunk that one way is better than the other. The approach that you mentioned, John, will require borrowing funds means you have to pay interest.
We don't have to, it's an option, it basically gives this and future councils
But I'm just saying, if you
flexibility
did-
to make those calls.
If you did borrow money, you would have to pay interest on it. In the other scenario, you don't have to pay interest on the funds. But, so there are puts and takes, I think, to both approaches.
Yeah. Well, and there's still, there's options of properties that may come up that if you start taking out of what's already set aside, I don't know, I don't know how open space would feel about that.
Well, all I would say is if you took the money and paid for all the projects at once, you get all the projects done, you would have that, and over the course of 5 or 6 years, which is how long it would take you to do the projects piecemeal, you'd have the same amount of money in the
Except
account.
between now and November, we are not going to know how much money we're going to need. And it may not be, if you may say, okay, 2 million will do it, I don't think it will. I think what you're looking at to do all these properties is probably way past 2 million. I don't think you could get all those numbers together to get a good number and say this is exactly what we need to do these projects between now and August 16th.
Definitely be more than 2 million.
Well, just looking at sort of a very exaggerated example, like at the federal level, you think $5 trillion would be enough money, but, they can't seem to not spend $6 trillion, whatever they spend now.
Right, but then, given the list that we were presented, which is a good list, but a formidable one, $300,000-$400,000 isn't going to touch much of that.
Well, that's the second point. If we're saying
so
we have a
maybe,
list.
maybe we should think of a referendum that takes more, basically, so we can get started on all these things.
I don't think
the turf field alone.
I don't think going
is
back to
gonna take more
that
than
big
400,000.
balance is a wise thing to do.
I don't think it's an easy sell either for the public. I don't think the
I
public
get that feeling too from some of
yeah.
them.
Well, but you asked what other proposals we might have, and if
Right.
we feel comfortable with the 80-20, I think we haven't had the opportunity to think this through. This popped up just on Thursday night, so we haven't really had a chance to discuss this among ourselves.
Anybody else? Christine?
I would just comment that if
I
they-
asked Christine.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I looked at the list and I thought it was pretty comprehensive but simple in terms of, and I'll just use the first example, basketball courts, lighting, and lower hoops for younger players. I love the basketball courts the way they are. They're very new, right, Chris?
Mm-hmm.
And is lighting needed? That's a good question for the neighbors. So
There's lights on the
every-
basketball court.
Right.
Yeah,
So I'm a,
It's not sufficient enough.
I'm sorry?
It's not sufficient enough for the summer league games.
Well, and
The
like I
light-
said, some of them are wish lists. Some of them are, if you have nothing else to do, we could do these things.
Is it the number of lights or the wattage or lumens?
The wattage.
you can
There's
increase
a couple-
wattage for nothing.
What's that?
Right, you can just increase the wattage.
We could just change the bulbs.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you're saying the lights are there, yeah, but it's not sufficient.
Okay, I didn't know
That's the
that.
first time I've.
First time I'm hearing it.
too.
Just change the bulbs.
But in addition to that, you have, that's a residential area, so we would have to obviously get their input before, we light it
I
up.
think we're getting lost in, sorry, but there's not enough money with that 20% to maintain what we currently have. That's the bottom line. We need to make our town and our facilities better. And we need more money to do it. And prioritizing right now, I don't think is the way to go about it. The way to go about it is trying to free up more money so we can actually accomplish this. Right? So, in terms of what's first, that's going to be rec committee and you guys, and you're going to allocate it. We've got to make it so the money is being available. Period. That's it.
I mean, essentially, that's what we've been doing, but with less money.
Right.
So we're being fiscally responsible, you know, we're building the bridge you talked about. We're trying to do this path. And it's a slow process, but it's obviously, this would be more of a fast process.
It would speed up the process. I
Because
think
every
is
time we
what-
buy the Peter Strike, that takes away from the 20% that is going to be needed for all these facilities. So now that we've acquired land, it's another acquisition, yes, but we don't have sufficient money to maintain what we currently have. So to have the option of using whatever amount that the council seems deemed to maybe just do maintenance all 1 year and not put any money to acquisitions, like whatever, there needs to be more money allocated.
So I support the idea that more money should be allocated. We're just talking about the method of how we do it. And so I'm supportive of whatever the voters want to do. And I want to put together a referendum that the voters will pass. Because if we put together a referendum and the voters don't pass it, it's all a moot point anyway. So, you know, what I'm just saying that there's benefits to doing it both ways. If we talk about the project list that's beyond $2 million, which I heard a couple people comment that the project list certainly exceeds $2 million, 364,000 times 6 is just $2.1 million. So if we're talking about, you know, this project list, taking 7-8 years to complete. So I'm just saying, is there a way to do it faster, get the money done, get these projects accomplished? You know, and if there is no better way to do it than this way, I support this way. I'm just asking if there's a way that we can do it that's even more attractive for people, accomplishes what we want to do, and doesn't and has a greater probability of passing. I support whatever the voters support. So I'm not going against this in any way. Just asking if we feel comfortable that we put forward the referendum that's most likely to pass.
I'm good with the 80-20, and I think it has to include maintenance also.
I don't think we can do that, but,
Well, it's a referendum, can't we do whatever we wanted to do?
Yeah, you could add maintenance going forward.
I think the reason it hasn't been included in the past is that it was the view of, I think, people who wrote prior referendums that the spirit behind open space account was not to do operating budget items.
That's exactly what it was.
Right? It was to do, at first it was to do 100% acquisition. And then in 2009 it was changed to 80% acquisition and 20% development of
But there's no point
open
in owning
space.
things if they're not developed and you can't maintain them.
well, that's what the operating budget is supposed to do, though.
The operating budget is supposed to do the
Yeah.
maintenance piece.
I think the
But-
definition is important too.
Right, would consider what is maintenance. It's not
talks
mowing
about
the grass.
maintenance being capital projects.
Right, not mowing the grass. You don't want to use that
No, it's
money.
not
for
for
that.
mowing the grass, but repair.
Right.
But like things like if it's a playground, repair of things, or if there's drainage problems on like the baseball field at Polo, repair.
Yeah, but that's a
I
capital
think those
project.
meet the current definition of it.
Yeah, those are,
Drainage project would be covered in.
right,
And replacement of the.
of a broken,
But not repairing.
not like putting
Yeah,
a screw
okay.
back in it, or,
No.
yeah,
It's covered, it's just the price.
those kind of things. Do we have a comment?
Just as a comment, in listening to the back and forth with how to allocate money and do certain things.
You should come up and put your name and address, please.
Mark Walden, 40 Liberty Road. Not having an opinion one way or the other of should it be 80-20, should it be all or nothing, should we, fund 18 different projects at one time. I've only lived in town 6 years and seeing a couple of different projects go on. I would just caution the committee as far as taking on too much at one time. To try and do everything that's on a list you know, in seeing what's happened at the polo field and one project going on at one time, to try and handle 15, 20, 30 projects at one time with all the money in the world, you need eyes on it, you need to be able to control it, you need to be, you know, have somebody that's running it. So just a word for the wise, a caution, you know, don't overstep, don't bite off more than you can chew, just, you know, there's, everybody's willing to help, but just another way of looking at it. And again, money's money, it's how you appropriate it is up to, you know, you guys, but in listening to what's going on, yeah, I'd love to do everything all at once. I'd like to have the town, all the fields as well as good as every other town around here, but you know, it's a learning process, and I think, you know, the polo field is definitely a learning process, and I think it's something that should be looked at going forward. So that was it.
Thanks, Mark.
I just want to say.
Right.
Thank you.
You had twice already.
Okay. I think it's, the more lists you make, the more lists get out to the public, the more problems you're going to have. If you take it and you're going to do the purchase, the design, the build, and the maintenance, that's what we're voting on as taxpayers. This is what you're going to have every year, and we're going to sit down, the council's going to sit down every year and prioritize, because things change year by year by usage, by water flow, driveways, grass, whatever you want to say. And you determine the prior year, this year, next year's money, it's going to these projects. And they can see, people will see that those projects are really the projects that have to be done, and they're going to get behind it. If they get a list in front of them, well, wait a minute, that's in my backyard, I want this, I want that, you're going to create more problems. Do it that way, like the governor said, make your list the year before, talk it, have a public meeting, let them come out, say what they want to say, and vote on it.
Plus you learn from, when you do one job, you know what went wrong with it, what went good about it, so it helps you learn what to do for the next job.
Right. The other thing I just want to go back to, when we did have that conversation with the council, and we went out and got many engineers to do the fields up there, and we had actual estimates on what the cost of the field was going to be, what the criteria was going to be, and that's how we came up with those things that I handed out that night. So it was laid out, and everyone knew the design, because our engineer also worked with us when we built the turf field for the 100-year storm. And that's the only way those fields should be built, the 100-year storm, and that's why they're built that way, so they can be played in any weather. I just want to clarify that.
Okay. The other thing I didn't mention, you know, when the committee was looking at, the first option that they came up with was that 100% would be either or, which is what a lot of towns do. I asked Aaron Sella of the New Jersey, Land Conservancy, and he said most towns have, you know, 100% of the tax is either acquisition or development based on the need that year. We kind of, you know, I think I ran that past the open space chairman, and they were a little nervous about that, so that's why we dialed it back a little to the 80-20.
I'm going to be a voice for using more money than just the 80-20. I am 100% supportive of the idea that we need to allocate more funds towards development of what we have, and then maintenance to some extent of what we get. But to Tom's point, $300,000, $400,000 is only going to go so far. And doing this from year to year, there will be people, there will be families that live in this community and move out of this community after years, having paid taxes, and won't see any benefit to what we do.
But they'll see a lot more than they're getting now.
Well, but we have pressing, let me finish. We have pressing needs. You know, the turf field is one. There are people who have expectation now that we've opened up Peter's Track, that we do something with that rather than sit on it for another 50 years, which is what we did. There's expectations that we do something with Moraine Crest, which is in fact a safety issue because kids are in there now and we know there's a problem. So we have the need for spending more than $300,000 to $400,000 a year. So I would like to see this referendum free up, in fact, more money.
The money will never come back. It won't replenish because the nice thing about this is it replenishes itself every year and it gives future councils the latitude to, like, you know, put it all towards an acquisition that might be on the radar or to improve it. But then kids are in Moraine Crest. That's not a safety issue. That's fine. I mean, they're riding on a pump track back there.
Well, it's a water safety issue as far as I learned from
They're
this.
riding bikes, they're not
Yeah,
swimming
they
in the water.
retested,
so.
I think the test came back better. So anyway, let's give Jack our input on what we think you want to see in this, and then we can talk about it more after everyone's had a chance to digest it at the next meeting. And I'm sure once it's in the paper, we'll get more people at the next meeting with opinions. Okay, proposed change to administrative code regarding agenda items. This largely came about because Tom and I had a disagreement about an agenda item last time, and poor Anthony got stuck in the middle. So I'm proposing to change the wording in the administrative code so that we confer on the agenda, but I make the last decision so that Anthony isn't stuck in the middle. Well, this says yes, and she says no, and now what do I do? I think as the head of the governing body and not a voting member, that's kind of the one thing that I do is the agenda. So, and anyone can submit items and, you know, we'll review them. So, comments?
I have a question, Jack. How long has the administrative code been written the way it's written today?
At least 20 years,
20 or so years? Has there been any issues in the past?
up to my recollection.
So the agenda item that we're talking about is the timing and content for this public referendum for open space. So I think, me personally, that the council has an agenda, so that the council members should have the ability to put items on the council agenda.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying that if there's something I think maybe we can take care of off the agenda, I should be able to say that. Or the mayor, not me, but the mayor position should be able to say, because there are some things that have come up, and I've said, I think Christina submitted things, and I've said, let's take it to committee first. You know, maybe this should go to public safety before it comes to us. I think that the chairperson of the meeting should be able to have some control over what's on that agenda and how it
I
gets.
believe that the council members should have the ability to put items on the council agenda.
They can, it's just that it gets reviewed.
Or vetoed.
Or vetoed or redirected.
So I believe, my personal feeling is that if we have an administrative code, within the administrative code should be scope for a council member, any of the council members, any of the duly elected council members, to put an item on the agenda.
Well, I don't know where, can I just ask, quite frankly, what are you getting at?
Well, I don't think that the mayor should be, no, I don't want to control the agenda. I want to have the council have the ability to put items on the agenda. If you're a council member, you've been elected by the general public, any one of us, anyone who's been elected and is on the council should have the ability to enter an item onto the council's agenda.
We do.
We do.
No,
But
it can
we're
get
saying
vetoed.
that if we change the administrative code per the recommendation from the mayor will have veto power over any council member who wants an agenda item that the mayor doesn't approve of.
Sounds very harsh. That's not my
That's the way it's
point.
Somebody has to make the final decision. I mean,
This is exactly how,
somebody has to make the final
no
decision.
problem.
is it New Providence has the wording in theirs? I mean, other towns have that kind of setup. It's really just, what I'm trying to do is have someone have the final say, so Anthony is not stuck in the middle of something. Right now, all it says is, it'll be done in consultation, which means we could have two different opinions, and then what? Then what happens?
Called compromise. I mean, that-
Somebody should
there's a
have the
give-
final
yeah.
say, and it should be the mayor.
Yeah.
I just want to
We don't need-
propose a hypothetical, okay? Right now, you're the mayor.
Right?
4 years from now, there's a new mayor, and there's a need for agenda items to go up, and that mayor just says, no, I don't want anything on the agenda.
Well, there's things you have to have on the agenda.
Okay, so there's things we want to be able to vote on, an open space, anything. And the mayor says, nope, it's not gonna be on the agenda, sorry. It's not you, it's just the mayor.
I know, but
Because this is the new code, and we would be adopting a code for all future mayors, and if we do that, how would you get it back to this?
Well, any resident can bring up any issue here. My thinking on this is, and if it raises the level of this is a problem that we all kind of agree on, it's going to be on the agenda, you know.
Well,
The mayor's not going to say, we're not going to do the drainage on Meeker Road.
Sorry,
because
John,
I don't
that
want
wasn't
that.
the case. That didn't happen. That's how this.
No, but
that's
you know,
why we're
somebody
having
has to have the
this discussion now.
final-
Wait a
wording.
minute, what did happen, Jeff?
what this engendered my understanding, what engendered proposal 6D was Tom's proposal to have 6C put on and discussed.
It's there.
6C is here for, I can see.
I said he wanted it on last month, and I said it's
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Okay.
It was undermining what the ad hoc committee was doing, because they
So-
were working on that, and they were going to come with a presentation. So I said I
So you
didn't want
deferred
it
it
on
to
them.
tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, my understanding of 6C was we were just asking what was the timing of that. It wasn't undermining.
But you don't even have,
Undermining is
I take difference.
mischaracterization.
It wasn't undermining, and I see this as an issue of transparency. It just, things are going to get discussed, but if they're on the agenda, then the public knows it's going to get discussed, rather than come up, and then that
but
gives
there
them an
was
opportunity to come
no
here and
proposal
comment.
for a referendum to discuss. How are you going to discuss something that wasn't even proposed yet?
Well, because there had been discussions of a referendum, and the question was,
What's the timing?
what was the timing?
Not in public. There was no public discussion of a referendum.
Well,
Who discussed a
no public discussion of
referendum?
anything this committee was doing, but that's.
Not
what we're
that
trying to bring
committee.
forward.
I mean, then where did Tom get it from?
Well,
How did you know
Because
there
actually,
was gonna be a
the idea of
No,
a referendum was his
The idea
original.
of a referendum was something that I
You
spoke
see,
to
here we
John
go. It's about
Donahue
credit.
and Mayor Canosa about.
No,
I think,
Come on.
someone
you
should
asked me
have
where
the
it
final
came
say.
from, I'm telling you where it came from, I didn't bring it up.
Someone has the final say, should be the mayor. That's my 2 cents.
Here's what I would say. The agenda, I believe, any council member should have the ability to put an item on the agenda.
Okay.
The purpose of it is for transparency to the public. To John Donahue's point earlier, anybody can bring anything up during the open session.
Exactly, even council members.
But the public has no advance notice that it's going to be discussed if it's not on the agenda. So by putting it on the agenda, that there's something that one of our council members, elected council members, wants to discuss, then that notifies the public, it gives a level of transparency that this item will be discussed. If you have an interest in it, come to the meeting and you can discuss it, or watch the meeting online at home. I don't believe that the council should see through administrative code their ability to set agenda items for the council's agenda.
What was the issue that it was delayed by one meeting?
The issue is not that the item was
That was
delayed.
the compromise.
In fact, when the mayor said, I have no problem putting this on the next week's agenda, she didn't mention she didn't mention in the email to me that anything was coming up from them. She just said it's not appropriate timing. But what I would say is, I think that this is fine, and I don't have a problem putting it on this meeting's agenda.
Okay.
6D was a proposal to disallow or to change the administrative code from here going forward so that the mayor can veto any item that any council member brings up if the mayor deems it not appropriate for the next agenda.
I don't like the term veto. What I'm trying to say is, we can consult, but if there's something that I'm not comfortable with, at some point, if there's a disagreement, somebody has to make the final decision. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm going to, be the
So the
people
final
will
decision
decide.
should be that if any council member proposes it, then it should go on the agenda.
No, it
Well,
goes to you and I.
Wait a minute.
It goes on the agenda, you and I review the agenda, you and I disagree on that topic being discussed, somebody has to say yes because
Yeah.
Anthony then doesn't know what to do.
Two questions. First, second question is for Jack. If we have a 3-3, who makes the tiebreaker? The mayor. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. Jack, any precedent to this?
Yes, well, first off, the other part of the administrative code is describes work meetings as being for review of the regular meeting agenda. But I think there needs to be some mechanism for
We don't really do that.
council people to add something to the agenda. A lot of times do it by motion, so then there's a vote. Motion in a second, and if it doesn't pass, it doesn't go on. But I think there needs to be some mechanism for council members, any council member, to say, I'd like to add this topic to the agenda. Long Hill does it by way of old business, new business. But during that section, people can raise it. And
Can add new business.
If they raise a subject, the mayor may say, we'll put that on the next agenda, we'll do it 2 months or whatever. But I think there does need, how you deal with it is totally up to you. But I do think there needs to be some mechanism for a council member, any council member, to add something to the agenda.
Well, it does say that they submit it to the clerk, that any council member can submit an item to the clerk. Then the clerk sends it to myself and the council president, and we review it. And I'm just saying that if there's ever a problem where we don't agree on it, somebody has to have the final word for Anthony.
If there's a tie and each one has a different opinion, the mayor breaks the tie.
The mayor can break a tie in an actual meeting.
Well, why, I know, but someone's got to be in charge.
But I think
That's
that
the mayor does.
I think
I
if
think
it's
that
if it's a
the
matter of
point is that-
strategy, everybody makes their case about why we should or should not do this. But quite frankly, this system has worked well for as long as this has been a borough and we've had administrative code. So, I'll go back to the fact that I think everybody's commented on how well this council's worked together. We've been very collaborative. This kind of works against that, in my opinion, but it also works against transparency, as it's been mentioned. While someone can add an item to the agenda at the time of the meeting, that still deprives the public of knowing that it was going to get discussed. We were all duly elected, as Tom pointed out. The people trusted our judgment enough to vote for us here. I think if we think that something's important to be on the agenda, that ought to carry some weight.
But there are some things that don't belong on an agenda, and that need to go to committee first.
And then we
And those
discuss-
decisions
and
need,
you make-
somebody needs to make those decisions. Or we'd have an agenda we could have an agenda this long.
To
And one of,
Christine's point, I think we have to be mindful of what I used to call in medicine, the law of unintended consequences. We're all not going to be here. We don't know what the future people are going to do with this.
no, but one of the things I noticed when I sat in meetings when I was in the audience watching is there would be probably 20 items on the discussion list, and they'd come up and somebody would say, do you know what this is? No, I don't know what it is. Do you know what it is? Whoever put it on isn't here tonight. I don't think that's a good organized meeting.
I don't recall experiencing.
I saw it sitting there
Well, I
many
don't think that
times.
this addresses that.
Somebody has to make the final
I
decision.
think it does,
Someone
because
has to make the final decision.
I think we-
This doesn't address the fact
I think we
that
run-
people don't show up to talk about what they proposed.
But there should always be, somebody knows what it's about, somebody makes sure there's backup material, and it's
But yes,
been
but well,
discussed.
that's the person who proposes it, and then the council president and the mayor. We should know what it's about. Whatever happened in the previous council and the previous mayor isn't happening now.
That's because I've been controlling the agenda. I've been going through items, I've been talking to council people who put things on, asking them what it's about, and talking about it, well, maybe we could do it this way, or maybe it should go to committee. I've been doing that. What I'm trying to do is just formalize this, that's my job.
Changing the administrative code after 26 years and ceding the ability of the council members to get an item on the agenda to this mayor, any future mayor, and writing it into the administrative code, I think it's a very dramatic change to something that could easily be discussed and just compromised under the current administrative code.
Jack, how often have we changed the administrative code?
We've changed several things having to do with committees over the years, but generally, there haven't been any changes to the meeting. Most of them have to do with council committees, things like that.
And I personally don't see why it's...
Day-to-day management of departments.
I don't see what's controversial about a council member adding an agenda item to talk about. I don't see why it's controversial.
I'm just saying that there
It's
should
the
be a
council's
final.
agenda.
There's got to be a gatekeeper, it's just to keep, because our meetings run till 10:30, 11 o'clock, and
But that's unrelated.
That's not related.
Well, I feel like the agenda's, somebody has to have a final decision. Somebody's got to make the call. Otherwise there is nobody in charge.
This is absolutely the council ceding their control of the agenda if we put this into the administrative
Anything that needs to be addressed will come up.
It's not ceding
It will be
control.
addressed.
It absolutely is ceding control, because what's written is what dictates going forward. Is the idea of you just, don't worry, it'll all get taken care of. What's written down is what is in the administrative code, and we can't control what future council or future mayor will decide to do with what's written in the administrative code.
Can I ask a question again, the same question formatted differently? What was the downside of delaying it a week, or 2 weeks?
There was no issue with downside. There was no downside. I didn't put 6D on this agenda. I didn't propose that we change the
No,
administrative code.
you put 6C, you wanted 6C on last time,
And the compromise was to put it on this time.
after you called the attorney and said, can she do that?
No,
When I said I
you
didn't
said you
want it on
denied
there.
my request, and I said, can the mayor deny a request by a council member to put an item on the agenda? That was the question.
but it's here.
It just took
It
another
just
week.
took a different meeting.
So, no.
I'm not trying to bait you.
Compromise
I don't
came-
understand. Maybe I'm being stupid tonight. It's here. What's the downside of the delay?
There is no downside. I didn't put on 6D. 6D was entered by the mayor as suggestion.
I thought we were talking about C.
We are.
No.
C is the one that raised the debate.
Okay, and that was supposed to be last meeting?
Right.
And so you had said, well, look, maybe we should make it for next week, and there was a reason for that.
She said, maybe we should wait till next week, and I said, fine.
Okay.
No.
Then
First.
the mayor put 6D onto the agenda.
No, first, we got, you put 6C on, I said, I don't want to put it on now. You wrote back, as council president, I formally request to Anthony that this be on the agenda. And I said, well, I'm not.
Which per the administrative code is within my
Right,
scope
and
of
I said,
responsibility.
I deny the request, so then you asked Jack for his
If that was,
opinion.
if your denial was
And-
consistent with
Okay.
administrative
Then we
code.
got an email
So-
that
so Chris,
Anthony
you know,
was
it's
stuck
not
in the
the
middle,
two-week
and I
delay.
didn't want Anthony to be stuck in the middle.
Now I understand it. Yeah.
So-
It's not
so-
so much a 2-week delay. It could be that a future mayor, I don't think you would ever do this, but a future mayor could prevent something from getting on the agenda, formally on the agenda. It could come up in open session, but they could keep it from getting on the agenda for a prolonged period of time, if not theoretically forever. So this is, to my mind, it has the potential of being a stonewall against discussion. And that's just not what we're here for.
And it also doesn't promote transparency, so I don't support it.
Can I just make a suggestion? And I'll ask Jack the question. In your experience with other towns, do you think you could get us like 3 or 4 examples within, similar populations and structure, weak mayor, strong council, like that, what their code says, and then we can look at the other towns and compare?
I have Long Hills, if you want to see Long Hills. Long Hill does that.
Not Bernard's, because theirs is different. They vote for their mayor every year. But I just think,
Long
like,
Hill does it?
Long
to
Hill
be
does it.
responsible
Because
for
Jack
future
represents Long Hill, too.
councils would
Yeah,
that
that's
be
why he got me
wise?
this one. It says that the
Because
mayor
the
shall make the final
example-
determination as to what's included in the agenda.
I think it's a fair question.
So,
The example of New Providence is, and they're going
It's
through their
Long
own
Hill.
different,
Well, Jack, you represent Long Hill,
sorry,
right?
wait, I'm not sure Christine was done.
they're going through like a similar, issues with council meetings. So all I'm saying is maybe we just compare other towns, what wording they use in their code, and make a decision from there, because I do agree that the agenda should be organized and concise, and if I have something that I want on there, I'm okay with it being returned or not on the agenda, as long as there's some kind of an explanation that I feel is, correct.
Reasonable.
Reasonable, exactly. So maybe if we look at a couple of other towns and then talk about it next meeting to decide on?
Well, it actually would have to be done by ordinance.
Yes, that's it.
So you'd have to introduce and,
So maybe a couple of samples and,
Well, they're all adopted by ordinance. yeah.
right, and then,
Section.
right.
yeah.
I'm not convinced that we need to make a change at this point in time.
Okay, you've already said that. We're good. Let's move on. Chamber of Commerce event, you've been sitting here this whole time. Do you want to say
What can we
something?
resolve? Just so I understand.
Jack is going to get us samples of other
Okay.
towns and how they.
Yeah, Jack's gonna get a couple of them. We have Long Hill already that says it the way that we're proposing.
And would they all be, because you discussed for us the various governmental structures, would they all be boroughs, which would have the same
They'd be the
government
same
structure
form
as
of
this?
government.
Same form of
Okay, I'm just clarifying.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
try to get those samples.
yes.
Hi, I am part of the Burnsville Chamber of Commerce, Christina Johnny Avellino, 60 Highview Terrace, or Avenue, and I own 27 Alcott Square, Lane by Design. I am proposing to use part of the library parking lot along Church Street to have a fundraiser on October 27th of this year. That is a dog costume contest. So I think that would really bring in, I have 2 dogs, I know that would really bring in a lot of people and a lot of town support. being downtown in the library is a great prime location. And of course, we will have vendors participating, not selling anything, but displaying. And I've already talked to a few of them that are quite interested, so. that's
Excellent.
And
So
if we had a dog park,
you just
the
need
Open
us
Space
to-
Initiative, that would
Yeah,
be a
right.
great place to have it.
So you want us to just approve the
Yes.
use of the library parking lot
Yes.
there for that? And is that a Saturday?
It is a Sunday.
Oh, Sunday,
Yes.
okay,
From, I believe we noted 12 to 2.
right.
So just, is this something that we need to ask the library board about as well, or is it our authority to?
I was directed to contact Anthony after I,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's our lot, so.
So then, my next question is that I think last year there was, so first of all, it sounds like a great idea. I think it's fantastic if we can do it. Last year, I think they had a trunk or treat around the same weekend, maybe. Would there be a synergy of having these two events sort of back to back? And would there be a synergy of having them on, one event Saturday, one event Sunday? I don't know. And if there's a way to coordinate it, I just think that, both events are great and they both draw good crowds. So I want to make sure that we try and maximize whatever we can get out of both of them.
absolutely, and I'm totally, I contacted Olivia and
Okay.
Tim, and I'm in close contact with them all the
Great.
time,
Okay.
so I'll be.
Two neighbors.
Yes, so, I've already talked to them about it.
Good.
So it's out in the open and.
Fantastic.
We need the usual insurance.
Right. Yeah, the chamber has all that, right? You do,
Right.
yeah. All right, any questions?
all
problems?
good.
All good?
Okay,
All right.
I don't-
Great idea.
Do we
I
not have
can't
to do
wait
a
to win.
resolution or anything? Jack, we don't need to do anything official, right? Or just,
No,
we're good, okay.
you've got a consensus.
My time is
Yes,
up.
all right, thanks, Chris.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
very much.
organizing.
Okay. The Burnsville Fire Company request to sell raffle tickets. Anyone have a problem with that? We good?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay. The draft ordinance allowing 4-hour free parking in the Ammerman lot.
I just did ask Anthony to put this on for discussion because I wasn't sure it's exactly what we wanted after the last meeting. I think it is, but before he put it on for introduction, I wanted to make sure it was okay.
Is that, so we talked about 4 hours there?
That was the Ammerman lot.
Yes.
That was what Kevin recommended too, I
Right.
think, yeah, okay,
So it lasts 4 hours free parking. If you're there for more than 4 hours, you need to decal.
right, okay. And we were gonna give decals to the employees that were like $10 or something? Was that part of the?
We were gonna change, does this same ordinance change the amount of the,
The fee's actually in a resolution.
right, so
Oh,
I
right,
think what we
okay.
were gonna do, we were gonna offer a 1-year waiver and we're gonna reevaluate it after 6 months.
Right,
Right.
So,
But that would
would
not-
that be something separate from
That
this?
would be something separate.
So,
okay, this is the actual parking
Right,
ordinance.
This is just, where you need decals and where it's free.
okay.
All right,
And can I clarify, because I think I didn't see anything written on there about overnight parking, so do we need to clarify that overnight parking either is or is not allowed?
it's not.
It's here.
It is currently.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
we
must have
allowed
missed
it.
it when I was reviewing it.
It is, well, the whole
Sorry.
parking lot ordinance is kind of a hodgepodge of things that a couple of days ago, the years ahead,
Uh-huh.
but it is currently permitted.
It's permitted.
Overnight parking is?
Yeah.
It's
With a
in
decal.
letter
Do you need a
8,
decal?
Right, with the decal.
7B. Free
So now-
parking permitted in, and then
I thought it was only the train station.
between the hours
No, it
of
lists
7
like 3 or
PM
4.
and 6
Yeah, I
AM.
did that.
And it does list the Ammerman, because I thought Kevin told me no.
Free parking
Overnight.
shall be permitted in the Railroad Plaza and Quimby Lane, and then we struck out Mount Airy, but that shouldn't be like that.
No, I did that because that would be superseded by the new ordinance.
Okay, so, and Mount Airy parking, this is existing. Mount Airy between the hours of 7 PM and 6 AM.
Right.
So that's overnight.
Correct.
Free overnight parking.
But it's not, I thought you had to have a decal.
You have to have a decal so we can determine who they are and where,
Why they're there overnight.
yeah, but why shouldn't?
Shouldn't be free overnight, I don't
$200
think.
for a parking space for a year is a very inexpensive,
What I was gonna, yeah, so I was gonna say was that if we were gonna write this ordinance, Jack,
But
if we
it's
address,
allowed now.
but what I was gonna say was, could we, because we're giving up the revenue of the decals from the businesses, and I think that came to like $7,800 or something last year.
Right.
if we could then say during the overnight hours, you have to have a decal, which would address, first, we know who it is because the person's purchased a decal, so, you know, it's not just,
But that's not required now.
That's not how it is now.
right, I'm saying, is that something we would want to consider? And then, you know, if those decals cost $200 or $250, you know, would that be a way of offsetting the revenue that, you know, we're changing from the other decals that we're dropping the price
You know
on?
what, you have
Can I
to,
ask you a question on
it's
that?
only till 6 a.m. though, so if you're, I mean, you gotta be out of there by 6 a.m.
Yeah, that's a pretty steep
Tom,
price.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the residents.
What? Do you have a question?
You said it was $7,000 that we were collecting from
The businesses for the decals, I think,
Yes.
something on that order.
and we're doing away with it?
We're just 1 year
For
waiver.
1 year, we're providing
Lowering.
a lower price on
That's
those
gonna be-
as a test of this new approach, which would mean that you still have to buy the decal, but it's like $10 a year instead of $200. So for anybody who's purchased it,
To help
so it would,
rejuvenate some of the, you know, make more
Try to
parking
fit.
available for stores and,
but also because the decal won't insure you a spot in Ammerman anymore. You won't be assured a spot, you'd be allowed to park for greater than 4 hours if you can find a spot, but the entire parking lot would be open to any free parking up to 4 hours. So that would provide 46 more spots, 40 more spots than exist today for downtown parking. So we've created spots for shoppers. And at the same time, we haven't taken away the entire benefit from the companies that are buying the decals today. They'd still have the ability to park there for 8 hours or more if they have the decal. But we were going to, for a year, we were going to test the idea of having the decal at a lower price.
okay.
I think it's problematic. I just think that the building owners should be the responsible party for their tenants and the people that they have working for them. And they should provide parking, the building owners. Building owners are getting away with murder if they have no parking, and they're letting, you know, their people in the building park anywhere they want. And then what happens is a lot of those people that are parking on the street in places where shoppers would go to park. There should be defined
Yeah, the
parking.
So
There should be
I'm sorry, I don't want to
defined
interrupt you, but we actually had a presentation from the planning board in our last meeting. They reviewed a lot of these considerations and they came up with a recommendation that we're reviewing right now. I think the only thing that we didn't clarify is the overnight piece, and so then I'm just asking that question now.
Well, because it wasn't discussed. Because it was already-
Exactly. So the idea was to make this change for a 1-year trial basis. We're going to reevaluate after 6 months, see if there are unintended consequences, such as some that you brought up.
Yeah.
And at that point, then we will make a determination about the long-term viability of this approach.
As to whether it's actually providing more shopper parking or not, that's what we're looking to see.
It's making the situation better
Yeah.
or worse.
I think the free overnight parking is meant for residents.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
And the other part of this that you may have missed in the last meeting was the chief was here too, and enforcement of the downtown main spots, the parallel spots.
Yes.
That was a key piece of this working, and the planning
To create
board
turnover.
made sure that
Right.
they,
Yes.
Well, you know, we have an ordinance that we can pay anyone from $15 to $25.
we do already.
We do.
And
do
that should
already.
be the guards we talked
We
about,
do
the
that.
crossing guards are the people that should be doing that during the day.
We have
No, we
that.
actually have an employee that, for
Yeah,
the
that's good.
police department.
Yeah.
But
that
see,
does it.
then we'll find out who's parking in those spaces. I'd like to make two recommendations on, we don't have any handicap parking in front of the coffee shop area. There's an unloading area that can be converted very quickly into a handicap there, and there should be one on the other side of the road over by Mediterranean Tile. There's another unloading zone there, but we need handicap parking in close proximity to downtown. Sometimes the elderly will go on Mill Street or in front of Mediterranean trying to get to the coffee shop or somewhere, and they're crossing the road and people are coming down the road. Now, when I was a kid, older than a kid, we had a stop sign right there at Rudy's, right? So the cars coming off the hill had to stop. When you watch those cars, you take a picture of those cars, film it, what's happening. When they see that light is green, they're barreling. Now, some of these people are walking out to cross. There should be a crossing there over to the other side and a cutout where they can walk up a ramp to get into the shopping over by the coffee shop or any of the stores over there. But those cars should have to stop.
Do we have, Doug, do we have curb cuts over by the coffee shop or by Mediterranean? Are there any curb cuts there? There aren't any, okay.
Just the corner.
Those are all state regulations too, too.
Yeah, so we can't actually do that.
Regulations on too.
Yeah.
Anderson, the curb is extremely
Why
high
do you allow?
by where
It
it
is.
had addressed. That's not navigable for
The state
seniors
sets
to
out
walk.
No, but that's,
We need to make some
The
changes.
state regulations.
there's state, yeah, we,
State regulations.
On
202.
handicap.
On 202, yeah.
Yeah, they allow them though, right?
Well, they have to do it.
Oh, okay.
the state would have to do it, yes, is that what you're saying, Jack? Okay.
Yes.
Do they have to do the crossing too, or not?
Yeah, they,
Because that's actually,
Before about crosswalks, yeah.
yeah, because I don't know what Quimby Lane actually, I mean, Olcott Square, is that actually ours, or is that the part that goes Mendham Road is, Anderson is
It
ours?
stayed up a little bit, isn't it?
Well,
You're talking about on Anderson.
202, and then the county goes, our road, Anderson Hill comes down.
Right, so you could
that's
put
ours.
we could put our own crosswalk on Anderson from
Yes.
Rudy's across, because
Right.
that is a dangerous, maybe, and put those little things that say pedestrian, because they
Right.
cross there all the
I
time.
would take a little more because we need to put when the crosswalk was built, you're coming from, from Mill Street, you have to ramp there. I wanted to build one when we were doing it, but it'd be very easy to build where you walk into a ramp, to be a 5x5 space that you walk right into, and then have a rail along the curb, and you'd be able to walk right up in there. So,
I don't know about a stop sign, but a walking path, make sure I understand this. Do we have control over that part of Anderson?
Yeah,
Where,
Anderson
between
is ours.
Rudolph's and Buono Pizza, that create a walkway there? Because people, myself included, walk there all the
Yeah.
time.
That Anderson is
I
ours.
think we do, but I'm not.
Yeah.
So
certain of that.
Jeff is public safety, maybe he can bring that to the
Yeah,
next
I
one.
Yeah.
would have made a note.
There you go.
I thought that was
Okay.
a good idea, yeah.
yeah, that'd be, that's.
All right. Mayor's update.
So where are we with that ordinance?
Oh, we want to do the draft with the $10, or not that doesn't go in there, just for
Yeah,
the
that's
4
a
hours.
resolution. We can do that for the next meeting.
Right.
We can introduce the ordinance and do the.
And do a resolution for the $10. Do we put in the resolution that there's a time limit on it? It's only for a year?
We can put it parenthetically, because it's a resolution. So, yes.
Okay. And where were we on the overnight parking? We leaving that as free till 6 a.m.? Because that's always the catch. If you
think
want to
you have
leave it
to.
there longer, you need a decal.
Yes.
So I think that's,
I think
fair.
you'd have to do that because there's a lot of residents in that area
Yeah.
that don't have for guests.
right.
That's the rationale for that.
Yeah, okay, good. Yes, so we will have that draft ordinance and the resolution for next week, or next meeting. Okay, mayor's update, I went with John McDowell and Doug to the DEP last week, and to talk about the drainage back here, and on the, behind the pond, and also the White Neck Road, and I think we made good progress. It's really helpful to sit there face to face with them, and you can really look at things and hash them out, so hopefully those projects will get moving. I met with Anthony Cava, who is the CEO of Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas Health Somerset, invited me down. He's been trying to meet all the mayors, and just, anything we want to do for health issues. He offered people for our wellness campaign if we needed speakers, so very nice guy, and a beautiful facility. I hadn't been there in years. We used to call it Somerset Medical. April 3rd, I had a library planning committee, so they are looking at their short and long-term projects for the library. Saturday, I went to the opening day of Little League and the ceremony. They said wonderful things about Doug Walker and all the help that he provided for the teams and the fields, so thank you, Doug. Yeah. And it was a tremendous turnout. You don't realize how many young families are here until you go to opening day of Little League. Wow. We also had our Recovering Couch Potato program here Saturday morning that we had about, 16 people-ish, maybe 20. It was a great program. He did a really good job for free. He volunteers to do these programs. And then Sunday, we did thank you, Christine and John, we did the walk with the mayor and council on Old Army Trail. On a beautiful day. Kerry was there. It was great. Thank you for participating. And tomorrow is the Borough Open House. for our New Jersey Local Government Week from 1:30 to 4:30. They'll be doing coffee with a cop here in the courtroom. So, and all the offices will be open and welcoming, so people can come in and meet whoever's here. And also, I keep reminding people, we also have the zoning office over in the downstairs of the library, and they said they'd have cookies, so, just saying. And we have a meeting on Wednesday. I think John and Tom and I will be meeting with, and Doug, representatives from the Board of Ed and the superintendent and their business administrator to talking about communicating with each other, how we can help each other and work together. So I think that's a good thing. So that was my report. Correspondence, I think we kind of covered all these. We went through the, do we need to make a decision on the pesticides? What do you want to do about that?
We do need to make a decision on the pesticides, and so in everybody's packet was some of the residents' emails. This is only one that's in the packet. Actually,
We
two.
got the one from Christie.
One from Christie and one from Carrie Hazelton, who's from our Environmental Commission.
Carrie who?
Carrie Hazelton. And there's also a petition that was emailed to everyone separately. So the bottom line is that in Public Works, we reviewed the current plan for what we're doing to maintain our playing fields.
Mm-hmm.
And we use True Green as our contractor, and they provide us with a list of items that they are applying to the fields. So that list, a resident requested us to share it with them, which is their full, any resident can request to see the list of chemicals or items that are being applied. And in reviewing, it contains the name of the item, for example, Rich Lawn Organic, that's I guess the trade name, whatever they're using, and what the what the evaluation is as far as health consequences and health issues. Some of the other items that they use, and these are synthetic items, are Barricade. And if you read the full description of Barricade, it's a carcinogenic. So I don't feel comfortable putting those on fields where kids are playing. The rest of the list, the second item on the list is Change Up. It's also a carcinogenic. It's banned in California. The next on the list, Escalade, carcinogenic. And this is all in black and white, and these companies are saying these are known carcinogenics. So I just think that we need to do our due diligence as far as figuring out if there's another way to do this. I get that the grass is green and beautiful, but from my own standpoint, and many, many, many mothers and fathers who have reached out to me personally, it's not worth it to put my kids on a field with carcinogenic. If you want to go even further, Merit 2F, kills pollinators, banned in California. Razor Pro, the active ingredient of Razor Pro is glyphosate. So most people in the past year may have read that this is also a known carcinogenic. I don't feel like we would be responsible.
Christine, how often are the chemicals put on the fields?
So there's a program that the chemicals are put on for a given period of time, and it's spaced out. Am I right, Doug? Like 6?
Different chemicals are used, different treatments are used at different times during the year.
And there are options. Currently we treat the common areas, as we call them, like in between each baseball diamond at Kiwanis, there's a common area, and that part is organic. The playgrounds are all organic, and that's state mandated. You can't put this stuff on the playgrounds where the slides and swings are. School grounds, you can't use synthetic, like a school field. And that also is a state mandate. So the state has been trying, and it's not passed yet, but to take the, what's called integrated pest management that applies to schools and playgrounds and make it apply to all public property, but that's not law in the state yet. So I can provide everyone with a list of other towns. Bernard's Township, everybody has heard. Cape May County, Chatham, Cherry Hill, Hamilton, Montclair, Ocean City, Red Bank, Voorhees, West Orange, West Windsor, South Orange, Ocean. There's a list of a lot of New Jersey towns that are taking this stand where we're not going to put known carcinogenics on the fields where our kids are going to play sports. They're going to touch the ground. They're going to have other health consequences besides cancer, including asthma, including, I've talked to moms who, opening day, the next day, their kids are suffering big time with asthma. And I mean, a bee sting is one thing, but, there's other health consequences that we have to consider before we just go and start these applications. So at this present time, we have not applied what we've been doing, and there are ways, there are experts in the organic field maintenance who I would like to invite to our public works meeting that can give us a full cost analysis, because we talked about the fact that when Chris was here, but he left, that this came up before, and we decided to go all organic at Kiwanis, but the quality wasn't there. That was before we knew that Roundup caused cancer. So other things have happened since then that I think we have to be responsible and just kind of, I get that everybody wants a safe, beautiful green grass,
The
but
chemicals that you just mentioned, though, I was on the phone with two companies, and they went over, it wasn't even close to what you were saying. These are non-carcinogenic products that are in these sprays.
I should send you the full thing then,
Well, I will,
because it says it in black
I'm
and
gonna call
white.
these guys back and find out, they were telling me no. The products that they put on are non-carcinogenic. Maybe when you go to weed killing or something like that, or we do a 1 week
It's
killing a
herbicides.
year.
Well, I think we see, I would like to hear both sides of it, 'cause I don't know a lot about either one, so I'd like to hear both sides of the argument. And I guess, what was being put on, I presume, is appropriate for the use and being applied properly. I mean, if, the DEP and the EPA are okay with it, I mean, you kind of got to follow that guidance. But I'd like to hear both sides.
So I also received a list from an attorney in town, and I can totally have anyone who wants to talk to him with towns who have had residents who've contracted illnesses and sued the town because they were playing on fields that had these things applied. So I think it's a lot more complicated than, than we'd like it to be, but it has to be addressed. And so what I would like to do is in committee, which is Public Works, to invite, we've already reached out to the person who has offered to help us or, give his expert opinion to us without any type of costs or, contractual attachment as far as what they're doing in Chatham right now and how it's working. Is it going to be immediately as beautiful as it is, last year or whatever? No, because there's a process that the soil has to get healthy again. And right now the soil is not, even though it's green grass with no clover and whatever. But there's also a very large maintenance component to this, which means you have to mow more often. So that also has to be factored into the cost. And, so we would like to just, before we decide to move forward with True Green's list of what they're going to apply, hopefully in the next 2 weeks or so, determine if we should go all organic, and then we can have the final say.
Doug,
here.
what's the schedule? Because I know you have a schedule that they have to start.
We're about 2 weeks late for.
Yeah.
So you're already late on the first application.
Right, but
So how does that affect the fields? if we haven't done the first,
We'll get more weeds and.
because that'll then put us a month behind, so.
Grass.
Yeah, I mean.
And we have a contract with True Green, so at this point, we can't switch companies, but do they have an organic, can they switch from synthetic to organic in mid-contract?
Yeah, I mean, yes, they have a organic program, which is basically just for those issues. Doesn't address some of the other issues that are full blown. The kind of plan that Christine's talking about, like, it's a lot more detailed, a lot more, as she had mentioned, more maintenance, more frequencies, things like that. So True Green does not do that.
Right.
It's strictly just an organic fertilizer, and, you don't have the pre-emergence, you don't have some of the other things.
So at some point, like, we have this one-year contract with them. So when we would go to contract, say, next year for, again, do we have just a 1 year with them, or?
Yes, they're part of the co-op, so we don't have to
Okay.
do a contract, what I was.
But what we would have to do is rewrite the specs.
That's correct.
So that we get the kind of products that are quality products and not, because I don't know if True Greens are really, yeah, yeah. Because we'd have to bid it, right?
Right, and then we'd have to bid the associated lawn maintenance.
Mm-hmm,
Because as Christine mentioned, you need more frequencies in cutting.
right. So we really need to look at what the costs are.
Yeah.
Right, so what some other towns have been doing, and this is gonna sound crazy, but we already have like our Adopt a Park program, the Green Team. So where each park has a sectioned area that a family adopts to pick up litter. So what I spoke to the Green Team about, and I would coordinate with them, is to expand Adopt a Park so that it includes weed pulling. When they're out picking garbage, they'll pick the weeds too. And most of the families I have mentioned this to are totally on board with that because their kids play baseball, and that's something they're willing to do if it means that their kids won't be
What
sick.
if they don't do it?
I'll do it.
I think you need to think long-term about safety, and I'll support 100% Christine's concern about the pesticides and herbicides. And to John's point that the DEP approves it must be safe, in fact, that's not the case. And all you have to do is look at what's going on now with Roundup, that we're discovering things later that, in fact, it creates us to reevaluate things. And in fact, not to pick on Roundup, but in fact, that's what's in the literature lately. They're supposedly having all these inert, it's not just the active ingredients that one has to be careful of, it's the inert ingredients, because these toxins get deposited in adipose tissue and fat. So somebody like me is actually more at risk than somebody like you. But it's exposure over duration. And in fact, there's a report just recently in the Scientific American that these supposedly inert factors are in fact not inert. So
I think
we have to err on the side of caution here.
You have to consider that the kids are closer to the ground and they're in a different stage. It may not be as harmful to us as it is to them, and that's what we have to think about when we decide.
Did I also hear that Berners Township has an all-organic program? And we have a program that requires by state statute that organics be used in sections of our fields, but not on the entire field. Is that right?
Correct.
Playgrounds
Playgrounds,
and
common areas, that's not part of the state statute, but playgrounds is and school grounds is. So it's called the integrated pest management. So some towns have taken the integrated pest management and applied it to the whole town.
So
And
where don't we have, what fields do we have that?
Claremont, Rose Bowl, the 2 baseball diamonds at Kiwanis. The T-ball is organic, right, Doug?
Correct.
Yeah. So it's Rose Bowl, which is right here, Claremont, which is on Claremont Road, and then
Rose Bowl.
is it Rose Bowl?
Rose Bowl, Claremont, Kiwanis.
Kiwanis, and part of Upper Polo, right? Not the turf, obviously, but the other two. in the
Evan
back.
Cow?
Evan.
If they're schools, I thought you said schools.
Those aren't school, those are ours.
Well, yeah, the school uses it, but we own it, so we're not required to.
So how long has the organic program been going on for the other properties? When did that start in our town?
2016, it's actually reflected in the minutes of a meeting in 2016. And then when I tried to determine when that had changed, I couldn't really figure out, I guess it was somewhere between 2017 to now that it switched back. And
Oh, so
We
all
had-
the fields
we had
were
all
organic at one point?
previously?
just Kiwanis, right?
Oh, Kiwanis, okay.
In 27, I guess it was late 2016,
Mhm.
is when Chris, the reference that Chris made to doing the common areas, that happened in 2016.
Right.
So it was all organic, then it was synthetic, half and half?
Half and half.
Okay.
Then you're gonna have the runoff of the synthetic onto the organic, so what?
Organic.
And then
Then
partials?
compromise and say we're going to do all the common areas and make sure the playground and
Okay.
the pool are synthetic. But inside the fenced areas where the play
Got it.
takes place is synthetic.
So what do we do right now, because we're doing nothing? That's the question.
When you look at Claremont, it's all bare spots all over. And the other
I'm
thing
okay
with Ridge spends $2.8 million they have in their maintenance program for their fields and parks. So they have the ability to do a lot of things that we don't have the ability to do.
You just said Claremont has patchiness, but
Yeah.
Claremont's synthetic right now, is it?
Yep.
That's synthetic?
Well, I mean, it hasn't had this year's treatment,
Well, yeah.
but
I
it's
don't
been
think-
synthetic this whole time.
Pardon me? It's been synthetic? Well, something's wrong in there.
What's the cost differential? I mean,
17 and 18 was synthetic. 16 is when we lost the entire center field.
From
That's what
last,
That's what started.
On
the
Claremont,
conversation.
you lost the entire,
And that's what prompted the conversation at council around the October timeframe of 2016.
okay.
And that was the conversation that Chris was referencing, the compromise was struck.
So we're back to, what
So the
what do
question
we do
tonight is,
now?
do we do Christine's suggestion, which is bring this expert or consultant into the Public Works meeting while everything stays on hold? Or do we go forward with Plan A or Plan B, which I guess one is we could switch to organic. I heard you say.
We could do that right now.
We could switch to organic right now while we evaluate the long-term viability cost, just for the first, just for the
Just
time
for
being.
fertilization.
And then we could.
So
make
no
a-
pre-emergence?
So they're just laying out what the options are. One is that we could, and then the other is we could go ahead with the synthetic approach while we do this in parallel. So there's stay on hold, switch to organic, stick with
what we have,
or stay on hold.
I'm kind of like, if as those three, I would pick the third one, just carry on the year as scheduled, but kind of study the issue, because I think there's a lot to take in just one quick conversation. Plus the cost, does the cost. If it's like 5,000 versus 20,000, it's, we did the budget, it's not a lot there to scratch around. I mean, it's pros and cons and cost benefits to everything.
How
So I
long would it
think,
take to get these experts into the Public Works Committee to talk to you guys about alternatives?
I mean, we could do it by phone. I could call him right now.
could
if
they
you
both
wanted,
sides
and
talk
he would
about it? Because
to us.
I'm always suspicious, are they selling it too, or are they just talking about it?
They're not selling it, they're just talking about it. I don't mind.
who is the
True
expert?
Green has organic.
Who's
We're
the
just
expert?
talking about, I'm sorry, I'll find it.
The person from chat.
When is the next Public Works Committee? You all can talk to
All
these.
right, let's try one question, all right.
If True Green has the organic, why can't we just find out what the difference in cost is from them for right now?
Well, they're not going to charge us for this
If
year.
we want to switch to organic this year, they'll do it for the same cost, but just understand, it's just a fertilization program, it's not the kind of organic program.
So what's-
It's not
so
what
would there be
Janet.
Could you ask them
weeds? So
what a
can't we-
full-blown,
so just mow the weeds?
organic
Why?
program?
Right, so mowing the weeds more frequently will prevent like
Makes it
as
look
many
pretty.
bees or whatever.
my
And
yard.
the other part I would like to just say is integrated pest management policies. Integrated pest management policies also incorporate the fact that there could be some type of dangerous infestation, and if that sort of thing were to happen, then you could apply
Right.
something
You'd
stronger.
have to notice it and do all
notice
that,
it,
yeah.
exactly. So it's not like, if something were to
That
happen
the
like that,
bugs take
you
over.
would be helpless, exactly. It's
Well,
something to consider.
Bugs
I
isn't
would-
the safety concern. It's the chemicals that are the safety concern.
Right. So I can, did anyone else read the list of what barricade on each one of these things has in it?
I didn't see the list,
I
but I
didn't
heard
see
what
it
you
either.
read to us.
You can read those, but it doesn't make any difference. You have to know what's being applied.
Those are the
Two
components that are being
ingredients
applied,
are
right?
being applied.
Okay.
Those components are being applied, right, Christine?
Not yet, but
But
that's.
that's
That's
part of the
part of
program.
the program.
It's part of the program.
Okay, Joe, look, no more public input right now, okay? Sorry, I mean, we gotta move this along.
So we have to make a decision, I think, as a council, what we want to do for the interim period while we evaluate.
Yes. Doug, what's your professional opinion? Should we, I mean, just, I don't want to put you on the spot.
No.
If we do just the fertilizer right now, I mean, obviously, we're not going to have immediate horrible consequences while we take time to look at this, right? But at least something's getting done?
I don't know.
You don't know that?
No, because, like I said, the organic doesn't have the pre-emergence in it, it doesn't have the things that we put on the warning tracks, keep the weeds out of the warning tracks. I'm not lobbying for one or the other.
Right, you're just saying this is what it would be.
Right, so we just need some direction on how.
But if the first application is just the fertilizer, and we get that at least done, and they've got time to do this.
For the organic?
And do the organic now.
Fertilization, yeah.
And then get the committee to meet and then really look at this so that and then get a plan in place as to what's going to work the best. Whatever, just collect the facts. Right now, we don't have all the data. And who is that? Did you find the guy?
I'm sorry.
Who, the expert, or is he the person that does the Chatham program? Because I think we really have to understand what this program is. If it's obviously different than what True Green offers.
Correct.
So,
Right, so the Environmental Commission also will be discussing it at their next meeting. And so, sorry, I'm just, I have
Doug, do we have
lot
a
of
schedule for
emails.
the next Public Works meeting? Do you know when it's scheduled?
Actually, I think it's next Tuesday, isn't it?
Oh, sorry, yeah. The 16th.
oh,
16th
yeah,
of April?
yeah, that's next week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, next Tuesday.
So I don't know if there's any benefit or potential to do it sooner. That's just asking, I don't know.
To have the organic.
Public Works meeting sooner if this person was available sooner.
I think we tried that.
We tried it? Okay, so if we're already scheduled for the 16th, then just go with that. Okay, I take it back.
Well, that's before our next council meeting, which is, I think,
20.
21st, something like that.
Okay,
Um,
so
Are we good with that? To at least get something done?
So use the organic fertilization for the first application. That's what we're
And then, yeah, don't totally switch over yet. Let's just get the first.
Can we do that?
application done.
We're messing ourselves up if we don't do it as is scheduled, whatever is on the schedule for now?
Well, again, we're not gonna have the pre-emergence, we're not gonna have.
Yeah, it's just going to get fertilized.
I prefer to keep it as is and as we study the issue, but that's, because, I want to hear both sides, hear all the stakeholders, and I feel like we're, getting kind of one side. I don't know enough about either side to really make an informed decision, to be honest with you.
So should we put it to a motion and have us vote?
Or consensus, Jack? What do you
Yes.
think? How do you want to do? Just to
Motion, I believe.
do a motion that, for basically saying either we totally switch to organic or we do one regular treatment on the same program?
Changing the contract, I think you should do it by motion.
Changing the contract, but we may not change the whole contract. This is what's confusing.
Yeah, so I mean, what we're motioning here, so I
Why
understand.
don't we just do a straw poll? Can we just do a straw poll or something?
Yeah,
And
'cause
just see how,
Chris isn't here, and
Too bad.
he was into it, he came up with a good suggestion.
Okay, so
Now he's not here.
the motion should be to move ahead with one synthetic application or move ahead with one organic application. Those are the two options I hear.
Pretty much.
The do nothing
Yeah.
option isn't really good.
No,
Yeah,
that's not a good one.
Okay, so then it's either go ahead with the organic or
Or
go
the
ahead
synthetic.
with synthetic. So,
One application.
Yes, if someone should make a motion to do one or the other, and vote.
All right.
If it's defeated, then another.
Okay, I'll move to do synthetic, how about that?
Okay. Second? I'm going to get a second. Sorry. All
So I'll
right.
move to go ahead with the organic.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Okay. Abstain?
Okay, so
Okay,
then.
so we do an
And then it's
organic.
on next, it'll be on the next agenda too, though, for us to review then what to do based on the information that we received at the Public Works meeting. is what also what we're due. Is that correct?
Yeah, we'll have all the data collected, whatever you discuss, whatever information this person provides. If we have costs, results, if they can tell us.
Testimonials.
Yeah, and really what's involved in the program, what's different, what makes it work as opposed to, the true green organic that we used to use. Why is theirs different? So,
Cutting too. The cutting cost too.
we have to cut more often, is that what they said? Okay, where are we now? That was that. All right, the display of the rainbow pride flag. That was a letter that I received. I did ask Ralph and Jack and Anthony if we have ever displayed any flags for organizations, and they have said no, we never have. So, anybody want to comment?
I think we should do it.
I'm supportive of having the flag, but if we haven't done it before, then I'm willing to consider prior precedent.
My understanding of the letter, and I was a little confused about what exactly they were asking, but I thought what they were asking is that we endorse that the county discuss displaying the flag at county headquarters and then all 21 municipalities. So all we would be doing is agreeing to have the county read it. I may be
No, it's saying, let us know if you would want to receive a flag and are committed to displaying it.
Right, but before that, they talked about having it, maybe I misread it.
Sort of two
It was a very kind of
two parts to the
really,
letter.
Yeah.
mushy.
It wasn't really definitive, but I thought they were asking, they said, we'll give you a flag, but they really were asking that we endorse, I guess, that all municipalities be involved in this.
Jack, thank you.
Well, they're saying they would, it actually says that they'd like to donate their flag to the Board of Freeholders, all 21 municipalities, and certain houses of worship to display them. So let us know if you want to do this. That's basically what they're saying.
As a general comment, I just like this job because we don't have to get involved in the hot button national, social, cultural, political issues. And so if we've never done it before, let's just national flag, state flag, Pal MIA, whatever's up there, and, call it a day.
Well, never having done it before, I don't know, this is a good argument because sometimes it's important to be a leader and be out in front of issues.
This also came from political organization, which kind of gives me pause too. It's,
That might be a good argument, but
because
to say we never did it before, therefore we shouldn't do it.
Well, it's a nuanced argument. You can take different, you can expand or contract, but I just think I don't want to go into national politics or get.
Who's this from?
It says the Somerset County Democratic LGBT Caucus.
And it's a political
That's what it's
organization.
from?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's political.
Oh, then
So then if it's
So-
political, I don't know if we want to do that, yeah.
I mean, just treat everyone with dignity and respect in your life and expect the same, and hopefully it's a better place.
Yeah.
I think if it was a nonpartisan LGBT organization, I'd feel
Yeah.
differently. I think if it's partisan, that's another story.
Yeah. Okay, so we will not get a flag. All right, we talked about the hanging baskets,
The 5G.
and what's the last?
Number 3, I think.
What? Oh, did I miss that? Oh, banning the 5G cell phone towers. We had a letter asking about doing that. They were installed, the boxes, up on the top of the poles
Yes.
in 2016, I believe, so.
That's right. 2016, the council authorized an agreement with Verizon to install them based on the rationale of the gaps on the mountain, basically. And there are a couple other points to this. One, you can't totally, under federal law, you can't totally prevent their installation. And I don't think that preventing or prohibiting in residential areas would be upheld either, to tell you the truth, because of the coverage gap question. And third, the general rule is that even before a board of adjustment on a cellular tower, a board can't deny the application based on health or safety concerns if the proposed facility meets federal standards. So objectors can't offer, medical or scientific evidence as long as that proposed facility is.
Are these active yet, these cell nodes, or? Are 5G phones even available?
So Jack, it's my understanding though, and I've looked into this because of the health issue about it. First of all, in terms of this letter, which it said that exposure has already been proven to be harmful for humans, animals, and the environment. In fact, that's not true. The human part, we don't really know that. The studies that are often quoted were animal studies, rat studies, in fact, with 2G and 3G, not 4G and 5G. So it's still an open question about the safety. However, the FCC doesn't really have standards. In fact, at the February meeting of the Senate Commerce and Technology Committee, Senator Blumenthal asked the FCC to provide some standards. So they still need to do that. So the question I have for you is if the council in 2016 or 17 approved this with the limited information they had at that time, and now we know other things, and you're right, we can't, under FCC guidance that was done in September of this past year, we can't say no unilaterally, but you are given a 90-day, at least in that September ruling, you were given a 90 days to opt in or opt out. Now, we'd already opted in a year and a half before.
Correct.
Do we have any kind of legal reason to go back and reconsider that?
I don't think so. It must be a definitive proof, you know, that it was a health and safety hazard. Again, I think the FCC preempted it, whether they have standards or not. You know more than I do.
But there were some communities that did fight back and were able to reduce the number of cells. So Doylestown, Pennsylvania was able to cut the number of cell units by 25%. And Sacramento, actually, which was one of the 4 pilot cities, ended up working with Verizon and got some concessions, such as Verizon providing free Wi-Fi in their parks and schools. So do we just say, okay, we don't have any recourse and let it go, or do we have any kind of footing to fight back and perhaps make something good out of something bad?
But did any of those towns do it after the fact?
Because he's saying 5G's already here, I guess.
It's here, it's been here for 2 years. We have.
Well, that's what I was asking. It was here, but now we have this new ruling by the the FCC, which gives you 90 days, which we didn't have the benefit of.
We have, what, 32 of them, I think? The contract said, I think it was 32 that were
Yeah, the
installed.
agreement, as I recall, they had to get the approval of John McDowell in consultation with the borough engineer.
Well, you're going to end up with more than 32 because they have to be spaced roughly every 10 houses.
I don't think there's, I thought it said 32 nodes or whatever in the contract.
Well, then they're not going to give total coverage of the town.
Doug, do we know where they are?
They're up on the top of the poles, if you
No,
look
I
at
know,
them.
but do we have a list of where they're located?
John should have a map, I think.
Yeah, there's the list.
Can I get a list?
Yeah, sure.
I guess it would be interesting to find out whether that was just a trial for us, or if it's...
We were a
full
pilot, we were a
Right,
pilot.
so like, is there a plan to come back and put in another 350 nodes then?
But is that a bad thing? I mean, it's pretty exciting, I would think. I feel like this is like it or not, this is coming. It's like, you know, the tide's going out and the tsunami's on its way. And, you know, if it's a good thing and it delivers a service, I mean, I missed my flip phone, so I probably shouldn't be really talking too much about it. But, you know, it sounds like it's supposed to be a game changer. I mean, if we're the first town, they've always looked for something that, you know, to sort of like hang our hat on. That could be a good thing too, so.
There are some concerns about the health effects of this, and it's an open question.
Well, they say the same thing about holding your phone to your face. I mean, that's hazardous.
Well, that's not-
People don't stop doing that, I know.
That's a little bit more clear. In fact, there is guidance not to hold the phone up to your face
Right.
and to use your speaker, for example.
So that's one of the things people can do to protect themselves, and at this point, I think it's something we should communicate to people, is that you should keep your devices off or in airplane mode as much as you can. Keep your phone away from your ear. Use hardwire internet connections if those still exist instead of Wi-Fi. Ensure that your home's electrical wiring is done properly to minimize EMFs. Keep devices away from your body. What I do in my house, because I have a 5G right across the street, is I unplug the cable boxes at night, because then there's no waves. So, I mean,
Yeah, well, that's
you're
good if you
right
stay
that
in your
it's
house.
coming.
That's good if you stay in your house, but if you go out to walk your dog.
Well,
you're
and I think what
exposed.
they were saying is because they're so
If you don't
high,
have
the way
this
they
on you,
disperse, it's,
Then you're not.
That's a
essentially.
question. So you're going to get, you're right. I mean, the higher frequency, you're going to get less effect, but then my understanding is that because they get such short range, they have to have so many of them. That's why they have to be positioned about every 10 houses. So
And there's a-
again, and I don't know that anybody knows one way or another whether it's safe or not. But what I do know in response to this letter, and to Mr. Pidgeon's point, is that we can't ban 5G. That's not within our
Right.
ability to do. The next question is, do we have any opportunity to negotiate with the provider, with a telecommunication provider, to have as few of these as is feasible to get the effect without having more than is necessary?
We could certainly approach Verizon.
I would imagine they wouldn't want to spend more money in putting them up than is necessary though.
Right. I don't think they even know how many they need at this point either.
Well, is this another discussion for the public? I don't know, would this fall under Public Works? Who would this fall under? Public Safety, Public Works, what?
Environmental, I don't know.
Public Works, I would say, yeah.
So do we need to have,
Well, because John's part of that, and he's got the
So
plan.
let's add it to the agenda, we'll see what the plan is, you know, how many nodes, where are they today? How many nodes in the future? And then see if we can engage Verizon in a discussion about what's most beneficial to our residents.
I mean, I think we ideally would want to keep them away from, a lot of the advocacy groups that are against it are wanting to keep it away from schools and parks. Because little kids are affected more than adults
But the
by the
problem is,
waves.
isn't it in your house?
well,
anyway?
you know,
If you're-
then you get into all sorts of, you know, having to parse things out. Okay, so if we're gonna keep it away from little kids, does that mean we also keep it away from Chipotle, you know, that kind of thing? We have to be careful, and if we think that it's not safe, then it's not safe. It can't be partially safe.
Right, but I don't think that's in our control.
No, I agree, but I think we need to explore it. What I'm asking for is that we do explore it. If it's through the Public Works Committee, that's good. Have Verizon come talk to us, and we'll see whether we can do it in terms of getting what we need for telecommunication, but at the same time, not getting anything that's gonna put people at risk.
Okay, add that to your agenda for Public Works.
Growing agenda.
All right, next was the hanging baskets, which we talked about with Ann when she was here. Letter requesting reduction of zoning fees for a prior application. This was someone who has gone through the process before we changed the fee. So they're asking, I guess they spent the $1,000 and now it's only 200, right? Is that?
Seems like it would be fair to me to do
Yes,
that.
it's not their fault, so are we okay with that?
Yep.
Yep.
Everyone's good? All right. And we have things for closed session, yes?
Yep.
Okay, someone want to move to go to closed session?
I move.
Second.
Okay,
To the back.
we are now in closed session. Thank you, those of you who stayed here all this time. Adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.